Across the UK, online and on DAB.
It's a new frontier in broadcasting. The Two Mics on Talk Radio.
We'll get you talking.
Good afternoon, I'm Mike Graham, he's Mike Parry, you're listening to The Two Mics. Everyone's in a panic about Brexit, we're not. People are still worried about gangs of clowns, we couldn't care less. Some people are surprised there's a good restaurant in Darlington. Why would they be? We'll be bringing you all the important news instead, like where all the butterflies have gone, how soon driverless cars will actually be on our streets, and why building sites are becoming more colourful. 0844 499 1000. Plus we'll have another chance to solve your problems live on air, that's right. It's time for Ask Porky. So get your questions in now on Facebook and at The Two Mics on Twitter. Mr Parry will try his best to help you out, whether it's a personal problem, a financial worry, or anything at all. He's got the answer. You're listening to The Two Mics with me, Mike Graham, and Mike Parry on Talk Radio.
Across the UK, online and on DAB.
The Two Mics on Talk Radio. We'll get you talking.
It's a beautiful autumnal day out there, and it's time to say a very, very good afternoon to Mike Porky Parry. Very good afternoon to you, Mr Parry.
And a very good afternoon to you, Mike. It is a beautiful autumnal day, and it was in fact a beautiful autumnal morning.
Yes.
I was out about 5:30 as usual.
A bit dark at that point.
It's very dark actually, but I don't have a lot. There's only 24 hours in the day, and I have to get up and make sure that the ducks are fed at the Duck Conservancy.
Well, we get a bit worried about the ice coming.
Well, they don't worry about the ice, to be honest. When the ice comes down on the duck pond, only half of it freezes. So it's perfect for them. You know, they've got the ice shelf to sit on, but they've got a bit of water to slide into. The ice shelf,
It's not exactly the Arctic we're talking about.
Well, it is. It's an ice shelf because, you see,
it's
what
a
you
thin
don't...
layer of ice.
No. What you don't understand is you don't understand that a pond, and its environs with the sort of rushes around it, you know what I mean? The bulrushes. Oh, like
the reeds.
The reeds, that's right. Yeah, that's right. Reeds and rushes.
You're not going to find any Moses baskets knocking around.
No, but I mean, what I'm saying is it creates its own microcosmic environment. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
A microclimate.
Speaking of cosmos, actually, people have been absolutely astounded on Twitter that you'd never heard of Carl Sagan yesterday.
Who?
Carl Sagan.
Carl Sagan?
Yeah, one of my favourite Americans that I picked for listography.
Oh, yeah, right. Yeah,
and you said you'd never heard of him. And people are absolutely staggered.
Oh, well, I don't know.
That a man with your scientific background has never, ever heard of Carl Sagan.
That was yesterday and today's today.
Indeed. Although we were very much off the mark, quick on the mark yesterday with the old Samsung story.
I think we were quick on the mark with a few things. Samsung story, we hit on that. Now they've withdrawn the phones.
They have.
The clown story, escalated
yes.
overnight.
Yes,
some allegations that the son of a Premier League footballer is involved in this at his private school, £17,200 a term.
Yep, some bloke going around with a chainsaw at Brunel University.
Yeah, but it's apparently it's only a toy chainsaw, so it's not too bad.
It's all very ridiculous.
I'm delighted to hear, actually, that was the best part about that clown story, and I'll tell you more about the microcosm of the ponds in a minute.
Good, I can't wait.
The bit about the clown story I like most was that the son of a Premier League footballer at a school that cost £17,000 a term. Yeah, hang on.
Why are you repeating yourself so early in the show?
Because what I'm saying is this: what more could you invest your money in than your children when you're a millionaire footballer? I think it's brilliant that footballers are sending their children to very expensive private schools. Excellent.
Why is it brilliant?
Well, because they'll get an all-round education. They will leap a generation from their parents. Because...
Then they can turn into that girl that we had on yesterday from Cambridge, who was very unhappy with her lot, living in London at her parents' expense and working for the Sunday Times.
We got a few complaints about that, didn't we?
A lot of people thought she was not quite living in the real world.
A bit snobby and all that. But, I mean, the thing is, think about it. Supposing we were talking about a lad who, had the basic football upbringing, came from a working-class environment, probably brought up in a council house.
You don't like them, do you?
No, but nothing against council houses.
Really?
Nothing.
So when you used the phrase council house scum, that was something else, was it?
I never used that phrase.
Yes, you did.
I never used that phrase.
I'm afraid you did.
No, and I would really, be quite pleased if you would stop repeating that falsehood, because...
It's not a falsehood. My name is not Donald Trump and you're not Hillary Clinton.
We are going to Liverpool, to the O2 Academy quite soon to perform on a live show there. And a lot of people in Liverpool used to live in council houses, so I don't want you in any way to be, besmirching my name.
Certainly not.
I don't like people who live in council houses because...
Well, you said it, I didn't.
More than half the country were brought up in council houses.
Were you?
I used to deliver Corona
Pop. Were you brought up in a council house?
No. I used to deliver...
This is why you have absolute utter disdain for people who were.
I used to deliver bottles of Corona Pop,
Cherryade,
Dandelion and Burdock Lemonade, to huge council estates in places like Ellesmere Port.
And you used to also sort of half-inch a few cases and pretend that they'd been stolen, didn't you?
Ellesmere Port was where John Prescott came from, by
the
way.
Is that right?
Yeah.
I thought he came from Hull.
Well, he represents Hull as a constituency, but he came from Ellesmere Port.
Oh, did he?
And his wife...
Was that how come he became a ship's steward?
Yes, that's right, yeah, because it's very close to a
sort of
port.
sea
Liverpool.
city,
Yeah,
isn't
you're
it?
absolutely
Yeah.
right, yeah. But his wife, Mrs. Prescott,
Yes.
can't remember her first name now, can you?
Not really, no, but I'm sure you'll find it on the parliamentary expenses sheet.
She was a beautiful Elizabeth Taylor lookalike, very, very glamorous woman, still is.
I may be going slightly far.
And he met her in a hair salon.
Did he?
In Chester.
When he still had hair, presumably.
Oh, well, he's still got hair. I mean, he's doing all
got a lot
right.
of hair,
He's doing all right, Prescott. He's doing all right. No, he's doing okay. He did quite a good job. But anyway, getting back
He
to
did quite a good job of what?
Well, I think he did quite a good job in actually pursuing his beliefs in life and not being a spin-around politician. You see what I mean?
What, so he always wanted to be in the House of Lords, is that what you're saying?
Well, no, I don't think he ever wanted to be in the House of Lords.
But he is now.
But he always wanted to sort of be the working-class champion, and I think he was.
Yeah, and now he can do it from the House of Lords.
And, well,
what
good
a
luck
great
to
thing
him.
for him.
Good luck to him.
Tremendous.
Good luck to him. Yeah, but he
Working
never...
class champion.
Hang on,
really?
he never stood...
Who Jags Prescott? Are you having a laugh?
No,
the man who said that
no.
he couldn't take his wife down the prom at Blackpool.
200 yards.
200 yards
in Bournemouth,
because it'd mess up her hair.
Between the Bic
So
Centre
he
and
had to have a special car.
Between the hotel and the Bic Centre, yeah. But unlike Lord Kinnock, the Welsh windbag, the man whose family have,
How is any different from him?
Well, the Welsh windbags family have conservatively made about 20 million quid out of...
That's probably a slight overestimation.
No, being employed in the public purse over the years, not just him and Gladys.
Glenys.
Glenys, that's right, yeah.
Gladys.
Yeah, not just him and Glenys, but I mean their children.
His
and
son's an MP now.
Themselves, and they've got, massive pensions and all that kind of stuff.
His son's married, is he not, to the Swedish Prime Minister? Or
no,
something?
former
Danish Prime Minister.
former Danish Prime Minister, I think.
Okay.
And the point is, at least...
See, Ed Balls is on Loose Women at the moment.
He's not, is he?
Yeah, talking about his Strictly Secrets.
He is,
How the mighty have fallen.
He is totally discredited now
Yeah.
as a former politician.
He is.
I mean, not as a politician, as a former politician.
Yeah.
To think this man once wanted to get his hands on the purse
exchequer.
strings of this country.
Yeah.
And now he's only pursuing the life of a clown. It says everything, doesn't it? No, it does.
Well, he's trying to make a bit of money, I suppose.
Pursuing
There's
the life
nothing wrong
of
with
a
that.
clown.
You should admire him for being an entrepreneur.
Anyway, old Welsh windbag, Lord Kinnock, he got up in the Commons and thundered and railed against the House of Lords. They're brigands, cheats and liars.
Yes.
And, I will get rid of them. No, he didn't. He joined them. And the other thing he did is, when he became a European Commissioner, which was the most ridiculous thing that John Major ever did in his government.
Yeah.
Oh, I've beaten Neil Kinnock in the election. I tell you what, I'll be nice to Neil. I'll give him the European Commissioner's job.
That's right, yeah.
That's not the way to go in politics if you want to succeed.
Well, John
in
Major
life.
was quite a nice man.
Yeah, so he gave him this golden egg of, millions and millions and millions of free euros, for doing actually nothing but affecting the life of the British people, even though you weren't elected.
Yes.
He then goes into the House of Lords. In the House of Lords, right?
Why have you started to get onto this subject?
Hang on, because you raised it.
Well, because you told me that John Prescott was a man of the people.
Yeah.
He's in the House of Lords.
Yeah.
It's impossible.
Hang on. In the House of Lords, Lord Kinnock then decided, I'm not going to say anything against the great European state. And do you know why?
Why?
Because everybody knew that if you start talking about the great European state in negative terms, that golden pension that you've got is suddenly reduced quite substantially to levels that they
it's not,
have
but
reconsidered.
he's got a lot of friends there. But he's got a lot of
of
friends there. He doesn't want to upset them. But it didn't do him any good, did it? Because we've now voted to leave the European Union.
Yeah.
Which seems to be upsetting quite a lot of people today.
Yeah.
Because there's this big story going around that we're going to lose £66 billion over the course of the next few years.
Well, that's one government paper put up for discussion, which happened to fall into the hands of a Times journalist. Very good bit of journalism.
Indeed.
Well done.
And also,
all
it
that.
was prepared during the period leading up to the referendum.
Exactly.
So it may or may not be accurate.
Well, it was part of the campaign of fear, wasn't it?
Well,
we all
you
know
call
that
it the
now, don't
campaign
we?
of fear, but I don't know. I mean, nobody seems to know whether any of it's going to happen, whether it's not going to happen.
Nobody knows.
I don't care personally.
Just before we came on air,
I'll just deal with it as it comes along.
Just before we came on air,
Yes.
so that's like 10, 12 minutes ago.
13 actually.
The FTSE,
The FTSE.
The FTSE stock exchange hit a record number.
What, low or high?
High,
Really?
record high number.
Well, the pound's hitting a record low.
Well, that's good in some
Which
respects.
is good for companies because it means they can sell more of their exports.
Exactly, but people are saying,
It's
well,
not very good for me. I'm going to Italy soon.
I don't care about you.
I know you don't. I realise that you don't care
The fact
about me.
that you've wasted so much money in your life on things that are not important. And,
What, like
and
enjoying myself?
Not essential.
I've
well,
wasted
that's
a lot of
not
money on
important.
enjoying myself.
That's not important.
It's important to me.
Well, it might be important to you, but
And it's important to those who are near and dear to me. They like me spending money
But
on
you're a
them.
self-serving individual.
I spend most of my money on other people. You have no idea.
Oh, no, you don't.
Yeah, I do.
No, you don't. You spend most of your money on... how much does that barber cost you?
And which?
Your barber coat.
Oh, the coat, a couple of £100.
Yeah, and you can't clean it.
Yeah, I've just had it re-waxed.
That's not cleaning.
But you
though,
can't
is it?
clean it, no, because you can't clean them.
Oh, you see.
You know, that's one of those things. It's one of those things that,
But on a coat you
that
can't
sort of
clean. Kind of a
northern,
slob would wear a
sort
coat
of
you
northern
can't
slobs
clean.
like you wouldn't understand.
No, I
You
understand
wear
all
a
about
barber in the country down
I
in the
think
south
not.
of England.
I think
that's
not.
the thing. Now, first thing I was going to ask you is, how did you manage to get in here today? Because there's a strike going on Southern Rail.
Yeah.
Not only a strike, but also people have been stranded all morning
Yes.
because they've got overrunning engineering works as well. People are not very happy. So did you walk in or something?
No, I have...
How'd you get here?
I have friends in the railway industry.
Oh, what, you had your own train?
No, but I knew exactly what trains were going to be running.
No, yeah.
And exactly
Really?
which trains were
You've
going to
got a
be
mole?
cancelled. I have a mole.
You've got a Southern Rail mole.
Yeah.
Is he a union type or a management type?
He's a Manchester United fan
Is he?
and admires me for my football knowledge.
Is that right?
Yes.
Is he a guard?
I can't say anything more.
Okay. We've seen the time.
Yep.
We better stop talking then.
Okay.
This is Talk Radio. We are the Two Mics. We've got Ask Porky coming up. We've got a lot of really great questions already. But if you have a problem that you haven't ever been able to solve, Mr. Parry is here to help you do that
Sure
today. So you can tweet us at the Two Mics or look for our Facebook page and put it up there as well. This is Talk Radio.
Across the UK, online and on DAB.
The Two Mics on Talk Radio. We'll get you talking.
This is Talk Radio. We are the Two Mics. Ask Porky coming up a little bit later on. There'll be a podcast going out there as well, of course. We have, by the way, found out, do you know where John Holmes is? The guy who normally sits here between 1 and 4 in the afternoon.
I do not know. Please enlighten me.
He's gone looking for gorillas, apparently, in Rwanda.
Oh, is he?
So he might not be back.
Well, that's a very worthy cause, isn't it?
Well, it depends, I suppose.
He's gone to find the big silverback.
Indeed he has.
Yeah, okay,
I'm not
good
sure if he's
thing.
making a documentary, but he could be.
What was that great
It's quite
film?
dangerous,
What was that
though,
great
isn't it?
film? Gorillas in the Mist.
Gorillas in the
That
Mist.
was in Rwanda, wasn't it?
Sigourney Weaver.
Sigourney Weaver. Did
Yeah.
she get killed?
She played Diane Fossey. Well, Diane Fossey got killed.
Diane
She was
Fossey
the-
got
that
killed,
was
that's
a real,
right, yeah,
that was a
that's
real
right,
person.
yeah,
I once
yeah.
interviewed Sigourney Weaver. Actually. I'll
Did
tell you
you?
about that later on.
Yes, okay.
Because we've got a guest to talk
I'm
to
very
now. We don't want to
interested
keep him
about that,
waiting. Well, you don't want to hear my story about interviewing Sigourney Weaver?
Later, please.
She
yeah.
gave me one amazing revelation.
Got a much
which
more
made,
interesting person on the phone right now. Okay.
What, you think Mike Rutherford's more interesting than Sigourney Weaver?
Oh, by a mile.
Not once I've told you what she told me.
Oh, right, okay.
Mr. Rutherford, a very good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon, guys.
I don't know
Mike.
whether you've ever been called more interesting than Sigourney Weaver.
Well, I'm flattered to be put in the same basket.
Well, exactly.
with this
Absolutely.
lady.
Absolutely. Now, I understand not only were we having a driverless car trial up in Milton Keynes today, but you had the pace of it. You were taking part in it.
I'm sorry if this puts a bit of a downer on the whole Milton Keynes thing, but as far as I'm concerned, that thing that they're testing today, there's number one flaw is they're testing it on the pavement,
Right.
and cars should be off the pavement and on the road.
Yeah, it's very small, isn't it?
Yeah, it's not a car; it's a quadricycle, so it's not even a car.
Oh, right. So
and
it's a
do you remember when
driverless quadricycle.
Yeah, and, there are these pods that bomb around. Do you remember the government, I think Vince Cable, God rest his soul.
Yeah, I remember him vaguely.
No, he's still alive, actually.
Well, no, but I was thinking in the career sense.
Yeah, he was
Oh, yeah,
thinking
yeah,
more
no,
of his,
no,
more
yeah.
of his
Oh,
political career.
Oh, well, his career died many, many decades ago. But anyway, sorry, go on, yeah.
Well, wasn't he the guy, though? Wasn't he the Lib Dem minister, in inverted commas, who wheeled out the self-drive car in
Oh, he
Greenwich?
was the trade minister. He was the trade minister.
Yeah.
He was going to conquer the
That's
world.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they were, again, it was these funny little pods. What the public are interested in are real cars, so replacing the car that you own now, the little sort of 4 metre long, 4-seater car that you might have for yourself and your partner and your couple of kids in the back. Can there ever be a time, any time in the near future, where you don't have to drive it, it drives you? The technology is there. The technology has been there for at least 30 years ago. In Japan and Korea, 30-odd years ago, companies like Toyota and Honda and Kia were showing me vehicles that drove themselves. I sat in them. I sat in the back seat, in the front seat. I watched the steering wheels turn, the gear sticks changing.
Yeah.
Did the
So,
same
so
with
why
Volkswagen
haven't we moved
Germany.
on, Mike? Why haven't we moved on?
Well, because, we kid ourselves sometimes in this country. You may have noticed that we claim that we're a great international footballing nation, and perhaps we're not. And we claim that we're going to set the world alight with British technology and self-drive cars or autonomous cars. The fact is that Asia and, to a large extent, California or Western North America has beaten us to it. So we're behind in it. The technology is there. The big question is the insurance world ready for an autonomous car? If there's a fatal accident and a poor pedestrian is run over on a zebra crossing, heaven forbid, who's to blame? Is it the manufacturer? Is it the software supplier, the computer manufacturer? Who does the insurance company pay out?
Is that what's holding it up, Mike? I mean, is that because I was going to say to you, you've just said that the Far East are ahead of us, California are ahead of us, but there's nowhere in the world where any country is running driverless cars. So is it the insurance problem that's stopping everything?
Insurance and legislation problems. If you think the government has to rewrite the rule book, the British government, when it comes to Brexit, I imagine what it's going to be like when it comes to the legalities of cars that don't have drivers. I come back to this point. Who do you blame if something goes horribly wrong?
Right. I mean, when Google have tried their car out in California, and I think Uber have done the same, they always still have a person sitting in the driver's seat, don't they?
Yeah, but again, it's going to take a huge test case. They certainly do, and it's going to be a test case as to whether the person sitting in the car was responsible. Yeah. Could that person have grabbed the steering wheel or applied the brakes or whatever? Yeah. And so we've got all these huge hurdles to go through. And what it means, basically, Mike, although you are a young man, you're probably never going to see autonomous cars in your lifetime.
Thank you very much. I presume you're talking to me, though.
Being made available to the public.
No, Mike Rutherford and I are very old colleagues. I think it was...
we're all old colleagues, but old being the operative word in your case. Yeah. But let's talk a little bit about how this will all kind of... all this, for example, could be blamed, because it says this system that we were looking at today in Milton Keynes uses LiDAR detection technology and cameras. What is that?
Well, it basically, I mean, to put it in its simplest form, and if anyone has ever been into a factory, some high-tech factories and not very high-tech factories have all sorts of vehicles bombing around that just simply read the white lines on the factory floor. They're autonomous vehicles delivering things to the production line. They can be reading either white lines, they could be following a sort of... a sensor in the concrete beneath them. It could be a radar sort of system. And so, the technology is there. That's not the problem. The other issue, would you get on a train? I mean, a fast train, a 70-mile-an-hour train with no driver? Would you get on?
Well, we do in London, don't we, on the old DLR?
Well, DLR doesn't do 70 miles an hour.
Well, it does 30 or 40 miles an hour.
That's about 25, I think, isn't it?
Well, whatever. If it comes off the rails, you're going to be in a bad way.
Well, because it's elevated.
Yes.
Yeah. But all right, a better example perhaps is, would you get on an aeroplane without a pilot? Because that's what you're sort of asking of the public. You're actually saying to them, do you want to be on board something that's moving at great velocity, possibly a speed that would kill you if you ever had, say, if you hit a brick wall? Do you want to rely solely on the technology, or do you want to say in this, or do you want somebody...
Well, Mike, can I just say this, please? And I'm not being stupid here, but the way that the military now use drones is incredibly efficient, right? And they're basically guiding things in the air from ground locations, and they're incredibly efficient, aren't they? Because
but isn't that slightly different technology?
They're killing a lot of people.
But that's different technology, because that's being controlled by a particular board and a particular person who's back in a base somewhere, whereas these cars are just going to be rolling around on their own, aren't they?
Are they?
Exactly. A drone is being remote controlled. You're sitting in a little box and you're controlling something thousands of miles away. Right. And it doesn't matter if you crash the drone either. It just doesn't matter a damn. You just get another drone.
Exactly.
And I just asked the question, is the public ready? I certainly wouldn't get on a high-speed train or a high-speed plane without a pilot or a driver. There's another big issue here, and I raised it on Sky TV this morning, because I do the unimportant things in the morning and the important things in the afternoon.
Quite right, too. Very well said.
And I actually raised the point that, and this is something that nobody's talked about, least of all the motor industry, but what we need to look sideways for a minute. What effect autonomous vehicles cars, vans, trucks, buses, etc., 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 will have on employment levels in Britain.
Yeah.
And if we can be serious for a minute, I think it will mean potentially hundreds of thousands, if not, over 1 million, perhaps even eventually millions of people losing their reasonably paid jobs.
I don't think that'll happen.
I think he's right, because, vans will suddenly go that way.
As each
delivery
generation
vans.
passes, the jobs that were traditional jobs are replaced by more high-tech jobs. I mean, for instance, we don't have any coal miners anymore. Why don't we have any coal miners? Because we don't dig for coal. But what we do is, we had other sources of energy. We had people building these huge windmills.
Entire communities where coal was mined are still destitute and have never been replaced with other jobs. So that's rubbish.
No, it's not. No, it's not rubbish.
Now, Mike, we haven't got a lot of time. Porky's been very taken, talking about, his heart is bleeding for coal miners.
Yeah.
He's very taken by this £400,000 motorhome that he spotted in the
Well, I'm not taken by that. I just don't know.
You like it, don't you?
Why would anybody buy a £400,000 motorhome when you could buy 15 houses in Darlington for the same money?
Yeah. Well, maybe if you're a famous footballer that's got hundreds of thousands of pounds in spare cash every month and you haven't got much to do, I'm thinking of a certain player that you've got great respect for.
Wayne Rooney, because he's not playing anymore, right?
I mean, be ideal for Wayne, and I know somebody who's got a number plate that could be fitted to it that might be quite appropriate too.
Yeah, right, okay.
Yeah, that's you he's talking about.
You've
got 2 Wayne Rooney number plates, haven't you?
Well, I had them years ago. I still own them, of course, but it's an investment.
He's been very modest, Mike, today. I'm not quite sure why. But listen, thank you very much indeed, as ever, for joining us. And thank you for putting us down as the number one radio station on the list. Exactly. Mike Rutherford there, of course, from Auto Express, a very big expert on all things to do with motorised vehicles. So you don't fancy that motorhome then?
Well, motorhomes...
I think it's ideal for you.
No.
You like to spend time on the road. You like to travel around. You like to be on your own.
I don't.
It's got underfloor heating. It's got a rain shower.
I'm sorry, but that's...
What do you mean?
That's like being a traveller, and I'm not a traveller. I'm a solid house, hotel type person.
Really?
No, I don't like motorhomes at all.
Really?
Not at all.
I think we should try and get you in one.
Why?
Because you'd enjoy it.
No, I wouldn't enjoy it.
You're like a king of the road type thing.
As far as I'm concerned, a 3-star hotel is camping. So
really?
Well,
why do you keep booking them then when we go to these places like Rugby and Whitley Bay?
Well, I only booked them for you.
No, you didn't. No, you booked these ridiculously awful hotels.
I have my own arrangements.
One of them didn't even have a bar.
I have my own arrangements, don't worry about it.
Yeah, no, but you're happy in those kind of hotels. You're a peasant at heart. No. Anyway, we got lots more to do, including Ask Porky coming up a little bit later on. Right now, though, it's time for some news headlines with Victoria Bourne.
The 21st century dream team of dialogue, debate and discourse. The 2 mics on Talk Radio. We'll get you talking.
This is Talk Radio. We are the 2 mics. We're here all week covering for Mr. John Holmes, who's out looking for gorillas in Rwanda. Now, a few people have pointed out to me, Mr. Parry, I have to say, that Lord Prescott, Baron Prescott, was actually born in Prestatyn.
That's my gorilla impersonation.
Yeah, he could have just stayed here and looked for one.
Yeah, exactly.
He was born in Prestatyn, says here.
Who was?
Lord Prescott.
OK, well, that's very close to Ellesmere Port.
Well, it's not close to Ellesmere Port, but
he grew up in Ellesmere Port, OK?
You said he was from Ellesmere Port.
Yeah, he was, because that's where he spent most of his working life before he became
it turns out he's not.
What was he? A ship's...
Well, he was a steward, wasn't he?
Steward, that's right, ship's steward, yeah.
That's why when he used to stand up in the House of Commons, all the Tories, in their terrible class warfare accents, would go, gin and tonic, please, steward.
No, it was another large gin and tonic, Giovanni, because he worked on an Italian cruise ship, apparently.
Yeah, absolutely
it's a bit
right.
Isn't it?
Yeah, Richard doesn't agree with Mike Rutherford. He says, this guy's off his box. I'd trust a computer driver far more than a human driver.
No, I wouldn't.
Well, the other problem with things like automated driverless cars is that they would be quite easy, I would have thought, to hack.
Well, I was about to say, if you've got an aeroplane up there with 580 people on it, like one of those Super Dreamliners
like
and all
that. 777.
Yeah, that's right, yeah. And it's literally in airspace where there's nothing else around because despite the fact that everybody tells us the skies are so crowded these days, how often when you're on an aeroplane do you see another aeroplane? Very rarely.
Oh, I always do.
Well, yeah, but not a lot.
Well, if you look out the window, you see them all the time.
No, crossing the Atlantic, you might see 2 or 3.
No, you see a lot, actually.
No,
you do see a lot.
Well, OK.
Because the most amazing thing I've always found, when you look down, say there's one, because it's always sort of on a different altitude, because it's going the opposite direction, you really catch the idea of how fast you go.
Yeah, no,
because it goes past you like a bullet.
Yeah, that's right. I agree. I tell you what, at Atlanta Airport, they have parallel runways.
Yeah.
So Heathrow this big debate about building another runway. Well, Atlanta just built 2 when they. I
see Gatwick, by the way, saying they're going to put another runway in no matter what.
Well,
which is going to affect the price of your property, isn't it? You live quite near there.
Yeah, I do live quite near there, actually, yeah. It will affect the price of my property upwards, I hope. But,
well, no, it won't. It'll make it go down. It'll be noise pollution.
No, there's no such thing as noise pollution, to be honest. But anyway, getting back to Atlanta, I remember being on a plane there taking off, and I thought, that's remarkable. And what happened was, there was a plane on the parallel runway taking off as well.
Yeah.
And the stewardess told me, show it again. She said what the pilots do is they literally race to see who can get up to 35,000 feet first off the parallel runways.
Really?
Because they take off at exactly the same time.
Right.
Yeah.
That sounds a bit dangerous.
It sounds dangerous to me.
Are you sure they have a game like that?
Yeah, she told me. She said, I said, that's...
Who told you this?
The stewardess.
Really?
Stewardess who, took a fancy to me.
How long ago was that? They still had propellers?
No. It was a few years ago. I've been to Atlanta since the 96 Olympic Games.
Oh, yes.
But anyway, point of my story is, if you've got this huge, metal tube up there with 580 people in it, and, you have malevolent intent,
yes,
I totally agree with you. All you've got to do is say, look, I tell you what, it's easy enough to hack into the Pentagon and find out their secrets.
Yeah.
Tell you what we'll do. Let's hack into
Hillary
the controls.
Clinton's emails.
Yeah, that's right, Hillary Clinton's emails. Let's hack into the controls of that aeroplane up there and give them a bit of fun by making it loop the loop or something like that.
Well, exactly,
you know what I mean?
right. And I would imagine the technology that would be used in a driverless car would actually be even easier to hack into as well.
I should imagine.
And I'm not saying you want to be a doom and gloom merchant, really.
No.
But, I mean, the trouble is as well, and which hasn't really been described by anyone, and Mike was quite right to say these cars they've been testing in Milton Keynes are not really proper cars.
No.
But, I mean, you've already seen how much the congestion has increased in this country. Yes. If you suddenly start saying, well, we're going to start putting driverless cars out there as well, in addition to the cars that are being driven by real people, where does it end?
Do you know what I don't understand people are talking about? And I saw a picture of it the other day. You know the James Bond jetpack from Thunderball?
Yes.
Now, that was tested the other day by a proper bloke who's built a proper one.
But this is
that
like
works.
a massively expensive one, isn't
it? It's 196,000.
Because you remember we did a show many years ago?
Yeah.
There was a place in New Zealand where they were manufacturing a jetpack, and you could get one for about 27,000.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And you actually at one point were going to get one.
Yeah, I was. Yeah.
Because you thought you could come into work on it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Because it had a sort of a range of something like 8 miles.
That's right, something like that.
Yeah.
But anyway, look, if this jetpack works and it costs £196,000, I'm telling you now, don't you think people like... we'll think of Elton John.
Yeah.
Elton John's mansion is in Windsor.
Yeah.
Now, if he was coming into London to a concert or something like that, right, who's to say that instead of getting into the limo and having to endure the M4
Elton John would
and all
not
that,
want to go in a jetpack.
Hang on.
Why would he want to do it?
Well,
he's been nearly 70.
Well, so what? It takes about 10 or 15 minutes as opposed to 2 hours.
Yeah, but you say that, right?
Yeah.
But can you imagine the state you'd be in?
What state would you be
in?
in?
I mean, I see people cycling to work sometimes, and I think, when it's raining...
It's no physical effort to have a jetpack on your back.
No, but you'll be coming through the elements, though, so if it's raining, you're going to be covered, you're going to be soaked.
Well, you put a waterproof coat on, you idiot.
You put a waterproof coat on, like Inspector Gadget.
And then when you land at the Royal Albert Hall, where you're doing your concert, you have a shower and you're fine. And then you get in your jetpack after and you go home.
Well, if you're Elton John, then you'd be going in a helicopter and you land in Hyde Park.
No. This is the problem, you see. Helicopters have restrictive takeoff and landing facilities.
Yeah, but he can land in Hyde Park right opposite the Albert Hall.
I don't think they can. They can.
He probably could if he wanted to.
Well, I don't think you can, you see. I think you have to land at designated sites and all that kind of stuff.
I don't think the jetpack thing is ever going to take
off. I tell you what, if I find out suddenly I've only got 2 years left to live or something like that, right, I'll flog a house and buy a jetpack because that'll give me a much greater thrill of ownership than a house.
Is there any likelihood you're going to find out when you get 2 years?
I don't know.
You think you should pass this on to me?
I don't know.
I've been wasting my time for a couple of years working with a man who's walking towards the cemetery.
No, I will.
At some speed.
I will try and find out. But no, quite simply, if I could afford it, 200,000, I'd buy one now. I'd buy one today. What I don't understand is with the jetpack is the biggest problem.
Well, you've got more money than sense if you're in a position to do that.
Why? If you can get a jetpack,
it's a ridiculous thing. Well, I mean, how do you think you can land in a jetpack? I mean, you say you can't land in a helicopter.
Yeah.
What do you think? You can just land, in the football pitches across the street there?
Definitely. Without
causing damage or injury. I mean, I can just imagine.
Yeah. Well,
I can just imagine. You'd be like one of those skydivers
who
tries to come down and land in the middle of a football pitch.
That's right,
Except he gets it wrong.
Hits the roof
crashes into the roof. I mean, you would probably crash into a line of parked cars or something.
You don't understand. The local authorities should start making facilities for jetpack landing and taking off. So they've got asbestos-like areas where you won't burn the pavement and all that kind of stuff.
You can't just have unregulated airspace for people in jetpacks.
You can. Because they'll never crash into each other. There's
Well,
too
they
much
might.
space in the sky.
Well, how do you know?
No, they won't. Well, only in the same way as pedestrians bump into each other on a
Yeah,
pavement.
but that's what I mean.
Yeah, well, it wouldn't
You have
happen.
people flying around, randomly. But of course they would bump. I mean, the laws of logic would suggest that they'd bang into
I
each
have
other.
absolutely no idea why the government aren't saying this is the most brilliant way to stop congestion of pedestrians, of traffic, of all, cyclists and all that. We should sponsor jetpacks and get people moving in those. Because the only thing wrong with them a few years ago, as I recall, was that they would burn the back of your legs because of the thrust from the engine at the back.
Well, that's right.
So you had to wear silver foil type
How does this
protectors.
guy's?
I don't know. I was
machine
trying to
work?
find out. But it doesn't burn anything. You wear a special suit, obviously, to fly, but you don't burn anything. And I think it's because the engines are like a foot removed from your shoulder, so to speak. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And that's the way it works. But I think it's a brilliant idea. And when you think there is so much space up in the sky, just like there's so much water in the oceans, and we don't farm the oceans properly, we should utilise...
We don't farm the oceans properly, but we fish them to death.
Yeah, well, we should utilise the sky.
What else are you going to get out of the sea apart from fish?
Well, we should utilise... Well, you could build cities undersea.
Undersea cities?
Underwater, of course you could.
Why?
Well, because
you wouldn't want to live in one, would you?
Well, I would spend time in one.
Would you?
You go on holiday there, couldn't you, and all this kind of stuff.
You don't go on holiday there.
Well, if I did. But I'm saying that there's so much space up there in the sky. It's the wasted element of the world, all that airspace and sky, and we should use it more productively, and jetpacks would be a way of using it.
Yeah, so you envisage this kind of, like that scene from, was it The Fifth Element? Where all the sort of
all the jetpackers.
Jetpackers, and there's little cars going through the sky. The fact that it's like a sort of, a super highway in the sky.
You must be
I can't
able to
imagine
do
anything
it.
worse.
You must be able to do it.
I can't imagine anything worse. I thought the whole point of technology was that most of us wouldn't have to go to work anymore. We just work from home.
Well, that's boring, and
It's
that
not.
drives
Well,
you
it's
mad.
only boring in your house.
No, it's
not boring in my house.
No, it's boring. If people work on their own, they get psychological problems from
Oh, yeah.
lack of camaraderie, lack of comradeship.
Psychological problems.
Well, they do.
Yeah, more likely
They
to
do.
get them working with you.
No, don't be silly. But I mean, look, what I'm saying is, remember Supercar years ago? Supercar.
I don't remember it actually, but you've told me about it before.
I'm sure that one of these days you are going to be able to have a situation where a car driving down the M4 suddenly hits a traffic jam, but if it's a supercar, you can have the wings come out and all that, and flip a button, and whoosh, you can take off, and you can drive over it all. I'm sure that must be able to happen.
Yeah, but that's complete sort of chaos. You can't have chaos like that.
Well, you'd have regulations, obviously, to make sure that people weren't suddenly leaping off the road and crashing into each other.
James says this: I can't think of what's more ridiculous, Porky talking to trees or getting a jetpack to work.
Well, I'm sorry, but if you can't envisage the future, then you are locked into the past.
Yes. Well, that's a very famous phrase that you've just coined. Have you stolen that from
Thank you
someone?
very much. No, not at all.
Really?
No.
You just came up with that?
Yeah, I just came up with
well
that.
Well done.
Yeah.
Okay, well, listen, we've got lots more going on. We've got a few more guests to talk to on the show.
Yep.
We're going to talk to a guy called Bill Grimsey in the next hour.
Bill Grimsey?
Bill Grimsey.
What does Bill do?
He wrote a book called Who Killed the High Street.
Oh, okay,
So
that's
he's going to be
good.
talking about what's gone wrong with the High Street. Also, it's Ask Porky coming up. And I'm going to tell you about a guy who's proud to be a member of a liberal metropolitan elite as well.
Is
a
he?
group of people that you are always castigating. This is Talk Radio.
Across the UK, online and on DAB.
The Two Mics on Talk Radio. We'll get you talking.
This is Talk Radio. We are the Two Mics. There's one of those cars driving on the pavement now that we were talking about live
Yes.
in Milton Keynes. It doesn't really look like much of a car, does it? I mean,
It looks like a mess, you know.
You couldn't travel that slowly, could you? I mean, it'd be physically impossible for you to drive at that speed.
Yeah, I just don't see the purpose of them at all at the moment.
It's kind of like a golf buggy with
it's like
with
it.
a cover, hasn't
Yeah,
it?
it is, yeah. It is,
Something
yeah.
like that.
Yeah.
Now, Johnny says this. You guys do know that Ed Balls is actually the Norwich City chairman. Us Canaries are personally quite glad he's away for a bit.
Yeah, well, I can imagine that. I mean, being the Norwich City chairman is not a job that anybody envies, and I think he did it because nobody else wanted it. Simple as that.
Now, how about this from Blakey, who says, I was brought up in Ellesmere Port in the 70s, and we had weekly deliveries from the Pop Wagon. Could have been Porky.
It could have been me.
Could it?
Could have been me.
There you go.
I was King Corona deliverer. Seriously, I was in 1972, I think.
Do you remember the R. White's commercial? Not that has anything to do with the Corona. It's
well, White's used to produce lemonade, didn't
yeah, I was wondering
That's
if R. White's was the commercial. But do you remember what was famous about it?
No.
It was R. White's lemonade. You know, I'm a secret lemonade drinker, that one. That was Elvis Costello's father that did those ads.
Was it really?
Yeah,
what you mean starred in them or
the
wrote
guy that
them
was
or
in
what?
them. Yeah, the guy that was in them.
Well, that's...
Do you remember, you couldn't see his face, right? He wore a sort of white... Did he not wear like a white boiler suit?
I've no
idea. And he broke into the fridge.
Idea. I find that massively uninteresting, to be honest.
Well, you don't remember the jingle?
No, I don't.
The jingle, I mean, you remember the most ridiculously minute details about shows like Supercar.
No, I was a Corona man.
A what?
I was a
Corona man, okay.
Corona, yeah.
How about this from You Got Weight? I will never forget watching Cosmos for the first time. The same emotions came back seeing the Sistine Chapel.
What?
Cosmos, Carl Sagan's show that we talked about from yesterday.
Yes, right, okay, yeah.
You still haven't got it, have you?
No.
Carl Sagan is a great visionary.
I like the Sistine Chapel. That was painted, the roof of that was painted by Michelangelo, wasn't it?
It certainly was.
Yeah, it was, yes.
Have you been there?
It was good. Yes, I have been there.
Have you?
Yes, I have been there.
You went to the Sistine Chapel?
I've been in the Sistine Chapel.
Did you lie down and look at it?
Yes. I've been in the Vatican, and I've been in the Eternal City.
Really?
And I've been in St. Peter's Square.
Were you invited there?
I went there as a child, actually.
As a child?
With my parents on a pilgrimage.
I didn't know you were a Catholic.
No, I'm not a Catholic. No.
Well, they must be.
No, they weren't either.
Well, why did you go to the Vatican then?
We happened to be in Rome at the time, and he said this is a very famous building. So I said, OK, so we went and had a look at it. No, seriously.
There we go.
Yeah.
Lucy says, I agree, Carl Sagan was a visionary and poet of science in his own right.
Really?
Cosmos episodes are still available on YouTube.
Oh, great.
So you can go and do that.
Well, why not indeed?
Yeah.
The other great thing about Rome was, in those days, right...
It wasn't built in a day.
It wasn't built in a day, certainly. But the Colosseum and things like that were completely open to the public, and you just wandered in, wandered around.
Oh, what? They didn't have a gate or anything?
They didn't have a gate or anything, you know.
Has that changed now?
Well, it's changed massively because so many people now have walked around it, it's fallen to pieces.
And what about is it Spanish Steps?
Spanish Steps are still there. And
there's still a place you can throw a penny into the fountain.
You can do that. I was there just a couple of years ago, and A, they're still there, but B, the Trevi fountains are still beautifully preserved, and they keep you away from them now because people used to do things like throw themselves in and all that kind of stuff. You know? It's a great city, Rome. Great city.
I've only been to the outskirts.
Really? Yeah. It's great.
I was flying back from Bosnia. I had to stop over in Rome for the night, but I was just out by the airport.
I see. Yeah.
So I didn't get to go into
the Rolling Stones, when they sort of got fed up with all the hassle they're getting here and taxes and all that kind of stuff, I think Keith Richards took off in a Rolls Bentley. I think same Bentley that he and Mick Jagger drove round to Brian Jones's house in to tell him he was out the Stones. Oh, yeah. Brian Jones was then found face down floating in his swimming pool the next morning.
Yeah, well, I thought he was found... I thought that was when he was out the Stones, not when they told him.
Oh, no, they weren't allowed to tell him. No, they weren't allowed to tell him because the problem is they were doing recording sessions and live shows and Jones was so out of it. I mean, sometimes he didn't even bother turning up. Yeah. And other times when he did turn up, he slumped in the corner, couldn't work out how to play a guitar and all this kind of stuff. Right. So they told him he was out and then he was found floating face down in his swimming pool, and there was always a huge mystery as to what happened that night. Even Keith Richards said it was a strange night. I don't know. Anyway, they took off in this Rolls Bentley and went to Rome. Right. And then Keith Richards, in his book, his autobiography, talks about the wonderment of the Spanish Steps and how they took an apartment in Rome. We had
very nice too.
They had all these girlfriends who became the girlfriends of like each member of the Stones in succession, all that kind of stuff. You know what I mean?
Oh, okay.
Remember the names? One of them was...
remember the names of what?
The girlfriends who were with the Stones.
Well, there was Marianne Faithfull.
Marianne Faithfull was Mick Jagger's girlfriend, but the other one was... I think she went out with about three of them. Brian Jones, Keith Richards and Mick Jagger.
Don't remember.
I can't remember her name.
Don't remember.
Anyway, there we go.
Yeah. Now, you're always castigating people for saying that they're part of the liberal metropolitan elite.
Yes.
You're always accusing them. Yes. Because you like to play the Mr. Popular card, don't you? And say that these people are out of touch with the rest of society.
No, not really.
Don't understand. But normally you would say that you like people who are members of an elite. But in this particular case, you don't like them, do you?
I like people who are members of an elite if they've done something to achieve greatness to get there. But I don't like people who are members of a metropolitan elite just because they happen to side with other people who politically think the same as them, and they're a cabal of people who think they should be running the world and not other people who voted in a democratic election.
Oh, okay. Well, listen to this. This has been written by somebody today in the Telegraph. We rightly condemn sneering and stereotyping of certain social groups, for example, the white working class. Judging people on the basis of their social identity rather than their actions leads to discrimination and divisiveness. But we have to be consistent. You should not judge people on the basis of their socio-economic characteristics, whether they're underprivileged or privileged. Yeah. Which is a good point.
Who said that?
It's a guy called Ryan Shorthouse.
Yeah, isn't that
which is not easy to say.
No, it's not. Isn't that a fairly obvious statement?
Well, no, because what is now happening in our society, I think, is that if you are a member of, say, for example, the wealthy class, as you might call them, if you are considered to be, say, a Tory MP or somebody who's quite privileged, I mean, like that girl we spoke to yesterday from Cambridge University, right? You are immediately sort of, put in a bracket as being a part of the liberal metropolitan elite who are all out of touch with what's really going on the streets.
Yes.
Right? And you would go along with that. And you would say that a lot of these people don't know what ordinary people's fears are, what ordinary people's kind of concerns are, whether it's about immigration, whether it's about unemployment, and all of those things. But this guy says, actually, that most of the people who would call themselves part of a liberal metropolitan elite live in cities, are successful, have done rather well for themselves, and so shouldn't be castigated at all.
Well, I think they're going to choose to seek employment in places where they know other members of the liberal metropolitan elite work.
Well,
so
no, they happen to
the
live in
BBC,
cities.
for instance.
Well,
okay?
yeah, but I mean, what I'm saying is
who all talk the same language and are all part of the metropolitan elite. So, for instance,
but they can't all be, can they?
They are. They all.
I mean, not everyone who works for the BBC thinks the same way.
I think they do.
No, they don't. That's rubbish.
Well, I think they do.
How can you say that?
Well, even the guys right at the top of the BBC have said in the past, we are, a centre-left organisation. We lean towards this, we lean towards that. People have said it over the years. The other profession where I think you almost have to sign up to being a member of the Metropolitan Liberal elite is acting. Because the problem with actors is if they're successful, they have to then literally have a bleeding heart to say, I really resent being so successful and so rich, so I think I'll pretend that I care about a lot of poor people.
But they have to be more left-leaning than right-leaning, don't they? And whereas,
of course they do,
Well, so you can't have members of the liberal metropolitan elite who are on both sides of the political spectrum, can you?
No, the liberal metropolitan elite don't exist on the right side of politics. They only exist on the left side.
Well, this guy says, call me a member of the liberal metropolitan elite, but I'm bloody proud of it, right? And he's the director of an organisation called Deep Blue, which is actually a conservative organisation.
Is it?
Yeah.
Well, that doesn't make any sense
to me. At one point I thought it was a movie, but it turns out it's not a movie.
For instance, remember Zach Goldsmith?
I do.
Now, he was the Conservative nominee to be the next Mayor of London.
Jimmy Goldsmith's son.
Yeah. And Jimmy Goldsmith was a billionaire financier.
He was.
So Zach Goldsmith suddenly decides to save the world, literally, and use his vast wealth inherited from his father to, pursue what I believe to be sort of pointless and crazy environmental issues, inclling...
Well, he was against the third runway at Heathrow.
I was about to say, including making sure we don't get a third runway at Heathrow, which
well,
of
you
course...
wouldn't say that was pointless and crazy, would you?
Yes, I would, because it will stultify the economy of this country.
Stultify?
Yeah,
Is this a new word?
Yeah, for decades to come.
Stultify.
So he goes and puts himself up as the Conservative candidate for the Mayor of London. He loses massively, and in between time, David Cameron, who was then the Prime Minister, and who is not now because he wasn't very good at it, decided to postpone the decision on a new runway at Heathrow in case it upset his chosen candidate for the next Mayor of London. The whole thing is rubbish. But what I'm saying is, Zach Goldsmith was definitely a member of the liberal metropolitan elite.
What I'm saying is, don't you find it odd?
This is a pointless conversation, by the way. Do you know what? Our audience are going to be wondering why we're talking round in circles like this.
No, we're not. Why are you upset with it?
I'm not upset with it. It's just that it's not going anywhere.
Well, it doesn't have to go anywhere. I'm just discussing something with you. I'm giving you my point of view. I know how you hate to have anybody else's point of view foisted upon you. All I'm saying is, I think it's unfair that you're not allowed to brand certain groups of people because that would be considered discrimination. But you are allowed to brand groups of successful and intelligent people who are doing okay in life.
Yeah, but you see, most successful and intelligent people that I've come across are go-getters who don't care about being a member of the metropolitan liberal elite. They just get on with life. Yeah. And they don't want to be a member of a club, real or supposed, and they don't want to be a member of a movement, real or supposed. They're just individuals who do things and get it done.
All right.
So I don't know. I'm not sure why you're sticking up for the... this band of sort of bogus individuals.
I'm sticking up for people who are saying it's wrong to actually just blanket blame everybody for something because they're not all thinking the same way. That's all. I don't think it's fair. I think, like you were saying, you couldn't go around sort of slagging off the white working class and saying they all think the same. Yeah. They're all idiots. Could you?
Well, I wouldn't say that anyway.
Well, no, but you would say it against the liberal metropolitan elite, which is the same thing.
Yeah, because I think it's a falsehood, you see.
You're calling them all idiots.
No, I didn't call them idiots. I'm saying they're all trying to be something, which they're not, but they're trying to affect a particular position in life. They're trying to affect a position in society. That's what I think they're trying to do.
Yeah, well, I think we should go easy on them. That's my point.
I've never been hard on them, actually, and again.
You're always slagging them off.
No, it's not. And they're not worthy of 5 minutes of my time talking about
Is that
them.
right? Should we talk about you instead?
We'll talk about something which interests our million listeners.
I mean, everybody's interested in what we have to say, okay? Whether it is something to do with liberal metropolitan elitism.
What you think I think a lot of myself when you've just said everybody's interested in everything you say.
I didn't say
I don't
said
agree
we.
with that.
I said everybody's interested in what we have to say.
Well, we include you.
Yeah, we does include me.
Yeah,
yes,
I wouldn't agree with that.
I'm speaking for both of us here.
I'm not pompous enough to think that everybody's interested in everything I have to say.
But you never shut up, though.
No, that's not true.
Yes, it is.
If I'm talking to a group of people at Everton Football Club, I should imagine a load of people who support Manchester United Football Club are not that interested in what I've got to say.
Yes, they are.
I wouldn't.
They are, because they listen for different reasons, though.
Well, I mean, I think that's a really pompous
I realised that
attitude.
whole conversation was it just went over your head. That's why you didn't like getting into it.
No, it didn't go over my head at all. It's just that I thought it vacuous.
It's so philosophical.
Philosophical?
Yeah.
Oh, you're a philosopher now, are you? I
Well,
didn't realise. Sorry.
I am a bit of a
Sorry, I
philosopher,
didn't realise old MG's going down the philosopher road.
Yes, I am a bit of a philosopher. I know that these complicated subjects are tough for you to get your head around because you can't see the world in anything but black and white. But sometimes it's good to expose the grey areas.
They're not tough for me to get my head around. I just see
the time, by the way.
long and winding road that ain't going anywhere.
Yeah, well, sometimes that's what the road does. This is Talk Radio.
Across the UK, online and on DAB.
The Two Mics on Talk Radio. We'll get you talking.
This is Talk Radio. We are the Two Mics. There's one of those cars driving on the pavement now that we were talking about live in Milton Keynes. It doesn't really look like much of a car, does it? I mean,
it looks like a mess,
You couldn't travel that slowly, could you? I mean, it'd be physically impossible for you to drive at that speed.
Yeah, I just don't see the purpose of them at all at the moment.
It's kind of like a golf buggy with a cover, hasn't it?
Yeah, it is, yeah.
Something like that. Yeah. Now, Johnny says this. You guys do know that Ed Balls is actually the Norwich City chairman. Us Canaries are personally quite glad he's away for a bit.
Yeah, well, I can imagine that. I mean, being the Norwich City chairman is not a job that anybody envies, and I think he did it because nobody else wanted it. Simple as that.
Now, how about this from Blakey, who says, I was brought up in Ellesmere Port in the 70s, and we had weekly deliveries from the Pop Wagon. Could have been Porky.
It could have been me.
Could it?
Could have been me.
There you go.
I was King Corona deliverer, seriously, in 1972, I think.
Do you remember the R. White's commercial? Not that has anything to do with the Corona.
Well, White's used to produce lemonade, didn't they?
Yeah, I was wondering
That's
if R. White's was the commercial. But do you remember what was famous about it?
No.
It was R. White's lemonade. You know, I'm a secret lemonade drinker, that one. That was Elvis Costello's father that did those ads.
Was it really?
Yeah.
What you mean, starred in them or
the
wrote
guy that
them
was
or
in
what?
them. Yeah, the guy that was in them.
Well, that's.
Do you remember? You can see his face, right? He wore a sort of white. Did he not wear like a white boiler suit?
I've no
idea.
idea.
And he broke into the fridge.
Idea. I find that massively uninteresting, to be honest.
Well, you don't remember the jingle?
No, I don't.
The jingle. No. I mean, you remember the most ridiculously minute details about shows like Supercar.
No, I was a Corona man.
A what?
I was a
Corona man. Okay.
Corona, yeah.
How about this from You Got Weight? I will never forget watching Cosmos for the first time. The same emotions came back seeing the Sistine Chapel.
What?
Cosmos, Carl Sagan's show that we talked about from yesterday.
Right, okay, yeah.
You still haven't got it, have you?
No.
Carl Sagan is a great visionary.
I like the Sistine Chapel. That was painted. The roof of that was painted by Michelangelo, wasn't it?
It certainly was.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
Have you been there?
It's good. Yes, I have been there.
Have you?
Yes, I have been there.
You went to the Sistine Chapel?
I've been in the Sistine Chapel.
Did you lie down and look at it?
Yes. I've been in the Vatican, and I've been in the Eternal City.
Really?
And I've been in St. Peter's Square.
Were you invited there?
I went there as a child, actually.
As a child?
With my parents on a pilgrimage.
I didn't know you were a Catholic.
No, I'm not a Catholic. No.
Well, they must be.
No, they weren't either.
Well, why did you go to the Vatican then?
We happened to be in Rome at the time, and he said this is a very famous building. So I said, OK, so we went and had a look at it. No, seriously.
There we go.
Yeah.
Lucy says, I agree, Carl Sagan was a visionary and poet of science in his own right.
Really?
Cosmos episodes are still available on YouTube.
Oh, great.
So you can go and do that.
Well, why not, indeed?
Yeah.
The other great thing about Rome was, in those days, right...
It wasn't built in a day.
It wasn't built in a day, certainly. But the Colosseum and things like that were completely open to the public, and you just wandered around.
Oh, what? They didn't have a gate or anything?
They didn't have a gate or anything, you know.
Has that changed now?
Well, it's changed massively because so many people now have walked around it, it's fallen to pieces.
And what about is it Spanish Steps?
Spanish Steps are still there. And
there's still a place you can throw a penny into the fountain.
You can do that. I was there just a couple of years ago, And A, they're still there, but B, the Trevi fountains are still beautifully preserved, and they keep you away from them now because people used to do things like throw themselves in and all that kind of stuff.
No.
You know? It's a great city, though.
I must
great
go.
city.
I've only been to the outskirts.
Really? Yeah. It's great.
When I was flying back from Bosnia, I had to stop over in Rome for the night, but I was just out by the airport.
I see. Yeah.
So I didn't get to go into
the
centre
Rolling
of town.
Stones, when they sort of got fed up with all the hassle they're getting here and taxes and all that kind of stuff, I think Keith Richards took off in a Rolls Bentley. I think same Bentley that he and Mick Jagger drove round to Brian Jones's house in to tell him he was out the Stones.
Oh, yeah.
Brian Jones was then found face down floating in a swimming pool the next morning.
Yeah, well, I thought he was found. I thought that was when he was out the Stones, not when they told him.
Oh, no, they weren't allowed to tell him. No, they weren't allowed to tell him because the problem is they were doing recording sessions and live shows, and Jones was so out of it. I mean, sometimes didn't even bother turning up.
Yeah.
And other times when he did turn up, he slumped in the corner. Couldn't work out how to play a guitar and all this kind of stuff.
Right.
So they told him he was out, and then he was found floating face down in his swimming pool, and there was always a huge mystery as to what happened that night. Even Keith Richards said it was a strange night to know. Anyway, they took off in this Rolls Bentley and went to Rome.
Right.
And then Keith Richards, in his book, his autobiography, talks about, the wonderment of the Spanish Steps and how they took an apartment in Rome. We had
very nice too.
They had all these girlfriends who became the girlfriends of like each member of the Stones in succession, all that kind of stuff. You know what I mean?
Oh, okay.
Remember the names? One of them was...
remember the names of what?
The girlfriends who were with the Stones.
Well, there was Marianne Faithfull.
Marianne Faithfull was Mick Jagger's girlfriend, but the other one was... I think she went out with about three of them. Brian Jones, Keith Richards and Mick Jagger.
Don't remember.
I can't remember her name.
Don't remember.
Anyway, there we go.
Yeah. Now, you're always castigating people for saying that they're part of the liberal metropolitan elite.
Yes.
You're always accusing them because you like to play the Mr. Popular card, don't you, and say that these people are out of touch with the rest of society.
No, not really.
But normally you would say you like people who are members of an elite. But in this particular case, you don't like them, do you?
I like people who are members of an elite if they've done something to achieve greatness to get there. But I don't like people who are members of a metropolitan elite just because they happen to side with other people who politically think the same as them, and they're a cabal of people who think they should be running the world and not other people who voted in a democratic election.
Oh, okay. Well, listen to this. This has been written by somebody today in the Telegraph. We rightly condemn sneering and stereotyping of certain social groups, for example, the white working class. Judging people on the basis of their social identity rather than their actions leads to discrimination and divisiveness. But we have to be consistent. You should not judge people on the basis of their socio-economic characteristics, whether they're underprivileged or privileged. Yeah. Which is a good point.
Who said that?
It's a guy called Ryan Shorthouse.
Yeah, isn't that a
which
fairly...
is not easy to say.
No, it's not. Isn't that a fairly obvious statement?
Well, no, because what is now happening in our society, I think, is that if you are a member of, say, for example, the wealthy class, as you might call them, if you are considered to be, say, a Tory MP or somebody who's quite privileged, I mean, like that girl we spoke to yesterday from Cambridge University, right? You are immediately sort of, put in a bracket as being a part of the liberal metropolitan elite who are all out of touch with what's really going on the streets. Yes. Right? And you would go along with that. And you would say that a lot of these people don't know what ordinary people's fears are, what ordinary people's kind of concerns are, whether it's about immigration, whether it's about unemployment, and all of those things. But this guy says, actually, that most of the people who would call themselves part of a liberal metropolitan elite live in cities, are successful, have done rather well for themselves, and so shouldn't be castigated at all.
Well, I think they go and choose to seek employment in places where they know other members of the liberal metropolitan elite work.
Well,
so
no, they happen to live in
BBC,
cities.
for instance.
Well, yeah, but I mean, what I'm saying is
who
that,
all talk the same language and are all part of the metropolitan elite. So, for instance,
but they can't all be, can they?
They are. They all.
I mean, not everyone who works for the BBC thinks the same way.
I think they do.
No, they don't. That's rubbish.
Well, I think they do.
How can you say that?
Well, even the guys right at the top of the BBC have said in the past, we are, a centre-left organisation. We lean towards this, we lean towards that. People have said it over the years. The other profession where I think you almost have to sign up to being a member of the Metropolitan Liberal elite is acting. Because the problem with actors is if they're successful, they have to then literally have a bleeding heart to say, I really resent being so successful and so rich, so I think I'll pretend that I care about a lot of poor people.
But they have to be more left-leaning than right-leaning, don't they? And whereas,
of course they do,
Well, so you can't have members of the liberal metropolitan elite who are on both sides of the political spectrum,
No, the liberal metropolitan elite don't exist on the right side of politics.
Well,
they only exist on the left side.
Well, this guy says, call me a member of the liberal metropolitan elite, but I'm bloody proud of it, right? And he's the director of an organisation called Deep Blue, which is actually a conservative organisation.
Is it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, that doesn't make any sense
At one
to
point
me.
I thought it was a movie, but it turns out
for instance,
it's not a movie.
For instance, remember Zach Goldsmith?
I do.
Now, he was the Conservative nominee to be the next mayor of London.
Jimmy Goldsmith's son.
Jimmy Goldsmith's son.
Yeah.
And Jimmy Goldsmith was a billionaire financier.
He was.
So Zach Goldsmith suddenly decides to save the world, literally, and use his vast wealth inherited from his father to, pursue what I believe to be sort of pointless and crazy environmental issues, incling...
Well, he was against the third runway at Heathrow.
I was about to say, including making sure we don't get a third runway at Heathrow, which
well,
of
you
course...
wouldn't say that was pointless and crazy, would you?
Yes, I would, because it will stultify the economy of this country.
Stultify?
Yeah,
Is this a new word?
Yeah, for decades to come.
Stultify.
So he goes and puts himself up as the Conservative candidate for the Mayor of London. He loses massively, and in between time, David Cameron, who was then the Prime Minister, and who is not now because he wasn't very good at it, decided to postpone the decision on a new runway at Heathrow in case it upset his chosen candidate for the next Mayor of London. The whole thing is rubbish. But what I'm saying is, Zach Goldsmith was definitely a member of the Liberal metropolitan
but
elite.
What I'm saying is, don't you find it odd?
This is a pointless conversation, by the way.
No,
Do you know what? Our audience are going to be wondering why we're talking round in circles like this.
No, we're not. Why are you upset with it?
I'm not upset with it. It's just that it's not going anywhere.
Well, it doesn't have to go anywhere. I'm just discussing something with you. You know, I'm giving you my point of view. I know how you hate to have anybody else's point of view foisted upon you. All I'm saying is, I think it's unfair that you're not allowed to brand certain groups of people because that would be considered discrimination. But you are allowed to brand groups of successful and intelligent people who are doing okay in life.
Yeah, but you see, most successful and intelligent people that I've come across are go-getters who don't care about being a member of the metropolitan liberal elite. They just get on with life.
Yeah.
And they don't want to be a member of a club, real or supposed, and they don't want to be a member of a movement, real or supposed. They're just individuals who do things and get it done.
All right.
So I don't know. I'm not sure why you're sticking up for the... this band of sort of bogus individuals.
I'm sticking up for people who are saying it's wrong to actually just blanket blame everybody for something because they're not all thinking the same way. That's all. I don't think it's fair. I think, like you were saying, you couldn't go around sort of slagging off the white working class and saying they all think the same. Yeah. They're all idiots. Could you?
Well, I wouldn't say that anyway.
Well, no, but you would say it against the liberal metropolitan elite, which is the same thing.
Yeah, because I think it's a falsehood, you see.
You're calling them all idiots.
No, I didn't call them idiots. I'm saying they're all trying to be something, which they're not, but they're trying to affect a particular position in life. They're trying to affect a position in society. That's what I think they're trying to do.
Yeah, well, I think we should go easy on them. That's my point.
I've never been hard on them, actually, and again.
You're always slagging them off.
No, it's not. And they're not worthy of 5 minutes of my time talking about
them. Is that right? Shall we talk about you instead?
No, we'll talk about something which interests our million listeners.
I mean, everybody's interested in what we have to say, okay? Whether it is something to do with liberal metropolitan elitism.
Well, you think I think a lot of myself. When you've just said everybody's interested in everything you say.
I didn't say
I don't agree with that.
I said everybody's interested in what we have to
say.
Well,
we includes you.
Yeah, we does include me.
Yeah,
yes,
I wouldn't agree with that.
I'm speaking for both of us here.
I'm not pompous enough to think that everybody's interested in everything I have to say.
But you never shut up, though.
No, that's not true.
Yes, it is.
If I'm talking to a group of people at Everton Football Club, I should imagine a load of people who support Manchester United Football Club are not that interested in what I've got to say.
Yes, they are.
I wouldn't say
they are because they listen for different reasons, though.
Well, I think that's a really pompous.
I realised that
attitude.
Whole conversation was it just went over your head. That's why you didn't like getting into it.
No, it didn't go over my head at all. It's just that I thought it's vacuous.
It's so philosophical.
Philosophical.
Yeah.
Oh, you're a philosopher now, are you? I
Well,
didn't realise. Sorry.
I am a bit.
Sorry, I didn't realise old MG's going down the philosopher road.
Yes, I am a bit of a philosopher. I know that these complicated subjects are tough for you to get your head around because you can't see the world in anything but black and white. But sometimes it's good to expose the grey areas.
They're not tough for me to get my head around. I just see a
time, by the way.
long and winding road that ain't going anywhere.
Yeah, well, sometimes that's what the road does. This is Talk Radio.
Across the UK, online and on DAB.
It's a new frontier in broadcasting. The Two Mics on Talk Radio.
We'll get you talking.
Good afternoon, I'm Mike Graham, he's Mike Parry, you're listening to The Two Mics. Everyone's in a panic about Brexit, but we're not, I'd have to say. People are still worried about these clowns, but we're not particularly bothered by them. Coming up, we're going to be revealing who some of the other Rolling Stones girlfriends were. We've got Ask Porky coming up as well, Mr. Parry, so I hope you're in a mood for helping people.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Because there's an awful lot going on in that direction. And also, we've got some very good tweets from people pointing out that Anita Pallenberg was the woman
that's
that
all
you
I
were
was
thinking
thinking
of. There's some great old pictures of Anita Pallenberg with the old fur coat on and sitting with Keith Richard. We'll be doing more of that. And also also talking about the death of reading books as well, coming up in this hour. You're listening to the two mics
death
with me.
of, eh?
The death of.
The death of
reading books.
Yeah.
What's wrong with that?
Well, it's the wrong expression, isn't it?
Well, what would you say?
Decline. Declining people reading books at bookshops.
Well, a decline leads to death, doesn't it?
No. The books
tell
don't
me. No, it's not the books that's dying. It's the art of reading the book that's dying.
Yeah, well, that's the wrong word, Dad.
Well, the day you correct me on the use of the English language will be the day that I reach over there and grab you by the throat.
Well, it's just happened, so you better start reaching.
No, it hasn't. This is Talk Radio. We are the two mics.
Across the UK, online and on DAB.
The two mics on Talk Radio. We'll get you talking.
Are you not sick to death, by the way, of all this Brexit panic?
Well, I'm getting a bit irritated that you're telling people on my behalf we're not worried about Brexit. How do you know I'm not worried about Brexit?
Well, I don't know if you are. I'm asking you.
Well, I am worried about Brexit.
Worried about
yeah.
Are you? Why?
Yeah.
What are you worried about?
Well,
you're worried about lose your fortune.
Yes, actually, I am, yeah.
Dear me.
I'm worried about the state of the economy.
Man of the people.
Now, when I see the pound plunging, and that's very good in some respects because it makes it easier to sell British goods abroad,
Oh, yeah.
but it could bring on inflation.
Yes.
And I don't like inflation.
Don't you?
No, I don't like inflation.
Well, people are saying inflation is good for the
off.
economy. Lord King, in fact, was
Yes.
on the TV this morning,
Yes.
the former governor of the Bank of England,
That's right.
saying that we've been trying to do this for years, i.e. Bring the price of houses down, bring the price of mortgages down, and actually increase inflation. He says that's a good thing.
He also said, in addition to those 2 points that you've made, which are quite accurate, he said we also wanted the pound to sink down to realistic exchange rate levels.
So he's saying that this referendum has actually done for the British economy what the Bank of England could never do in 10 years of trying.
Yeah, the problem is that we can believe in it as much as we like, and we must stand firm in our beliefs as British people. We've voted on it democratically. But when the rest of Europe is all panicking like mad, because you've got to remember, without wanting to give everybody a sort of political and economic lecture, that us leaving Europe, there are two people affected. One is Britain, the one is the rest of Europe. We are the fifth biggest economy in the world, and they don't want us to opt out.
Well, what they don't want to see is the decline of the European Union as an entity, which could lead to its death.
Exactly.
See what I mean?
Or its demise, I think, is probably a better word.
The death of the EU is something that's definitely on the cards, I would say.
If you're not worried about it, then you're walking around, with a cloth wrapped around your head, because it's important.
Well, I've said to you many times, there's no point in worrying about something you can't do anything about. And so you can't do anything about it, you might as well stop worrying.
I can do things about it.
What can you do?
Well, when I see people and I meet them in social situations.
You can rearrange your portfolio, I suppose.
Well, no, I see people. I say, remember, this is what we have to do to get through this and all that kind of stuff. And then by word of mouth, my wisdom will spread.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is that how it works?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, jolly good. Well, I'll tell you what, coming up a little bit later on, some of the Ask Porky questions are going to be very interesting.
Of course they are.
Because there's loads of good ones on Facebook already that I've seen.
Now, why are you getting worried about the colour of a hat that a chap on a building site works?
Well, I'm not particularly...
wears.
I'm not particularly worried about that, but I did notice when I was walking in today, knowing that we might be having a look at this particular story, that every workman I saw was wearing a different coloured hat.
Right.
I saw two guys who had BT sort of uniforms on, who were close to a BT van, wearing black hats, right? Then orange high-vis vests.
Yeah.
Right? I then saw another guy wearing a green hat.
Yes.
Another guy wearing a red hat. So I wonder if this has already happened.
The high-vis vest is the most ridiculous working garment in the history of the world.
Is it not the case now that you have to have one if you're driving abroad? You have to have, you know how you used to have a triangle?
I think you
do.
You
have to have a triangle. Everybody has a triangle.
Yeah.
And I think in France now you have to have a breathalyzer kit and a high-vis vest.
I think you do, and I've no idea why.
I don't think you need one in England, though, do you?
The sort of people now who wear high-vis vests, I mean, I just don't understand it. People go about their everyday work and they're wearing a high-vis vest, like in supermarkets.
Yes.
The guy who
collects the trolleys.
That's right, yeah. The guy who collects the trolleys is so important, he has a high-vis vest. But anyway, look, I have gone and checked out the new colour coding of the hats for Bob the Builder.
Okay.
And if you saw a guy with a black hat on, as you said you did, he's a supervisor.
Oh, right. So there must be two supervisors then.
Why?
Well, there was two of them, both wearing black hats.
Must be joint supervisors, right. The guy with the orange hat is a signaller.
A signaller?
Yeah.
What's that?
Well, what they do is, as I understand it, knowing a little bit about these things, having studied urban estate management.
Urban estate management, yes, of course.
He stands at the gates, and when the huge lorries arrive to either deliver goods or to take away the rubble that's been dug out by the diggers.
Yes.
What are they called? The
diggers. JCBs.
JCBs and all that kind of stuff.
You can diggers if you want.
Yeah, diggers, yeah. He actually stops the traffic. He guides the big lorries into the site, guides them out again and all that kind of stuff. They're called point men, right?
Yes.
And then the white-hatted members of the construction industry are competent operative and vehicle marshals.
Oh, isn't that the job you've just described?
It could be.
So that's a different guy from the signal man.
Yeah.
When I hear the phrase white hat, it always reminds me of Butch Cassidy, the Sundance Kid. Do you remember when they're being tracked across the desert?
Oh, yeah?
By the posse.
Right.
And they finally, their end is nigh.
Right.
And the guy who's the tracker...
This is in Bolivia?
No, this is in America.
Oh, is
before they go to Bolivia.
Oh, I see.
Because they realise they can't get away from this guy.
Okay, this
is
is when they jump off the cliff to get away.
Yeah, and they're looking, and every time they see the posse coming at them, the guy's wearing a white hat.
Right.
And they keep saying, who's that guy in the white hat?
Yeah.
Because he's now this incredibly good... I know that's completely off the subject.
No, but they're going to blow his head off with his white hat, yeah.
Do you know when I was when my oldest son was growing up,
right.
he was fascinated by JCBs, and there was a great programme called JCB, James Cyril Bamford. It was all about James Cyril Bamford, the guy that started it.
Well, yes. I mean, I think James Cyril Bamford is the current chairman, but I think his father started
I think he was also called
that.
Yeah,
I think he was, yeah.
But we used to sit and watch this documentary about sort of cranes and diggers.
Yeah.
And he was absolutely fascinated by it.
Yeah.
And now he's fascinated by cars. I wonder if there's a connection.
Well, I don't know. It's all mechanical, isn't it?
Yeah,
but I mean,
suppose
JCB is one of the great British companies, and so I hope it goes on forever. But eventually we'll probably find out it's been bought by an American
or a Chinese company.
Chinese company is even more likely. But anyway, so we've got to find out what the signallers do, because they wear their own hats. I don't know what the signal... Could they be the guys who actually wave to the crane driver and indicate, bring your jib over here and all this kind of stuff?
Do you think somebody does that?
Well, they do, don't they?
Do
they have to, yeah.
Well, I don't know.
I suppose you do it on a phone.
You're the
days.
urban estate management specialist.
All right. Anyway, so...
What other colours are there then?
Well, I'm about to say to you, so black supervisor, you have a status, okay? Orange, you're a signaller, you have a status.
Right.
White, you're either a competent operative or a vehicle marshal.
Okay.
But if you're blue, guess what that is?
Blue. I don't know.
Everyone else.
Everyone else.
You have no status.
Oh, so if you're going to... It's a bit like the old UN, isn't it? With the blue helmets.
That's right, yeah.
So they're not allowed to really have any power at all.
You have no status at all.
But why is it being done, though?
Well, it's been done because there's too many people on building sites now. So, literally, what you said earlier, nobody knows who's in charge of what.
Right.
So if a chap turns up with a load of scaffolding on his lorry,
Yeah.
he's got to spend half an hour going and asking 6 or 8 different people.
So now he just has to look for the guy in the black hat.
He looks for the guy in the black hat, the supervisor. That's right, yeah. It says white will become the most commonly seen helmet, okay? It will be worn by site managers and competent operatives. So does that mean on a building site there are some incompetent operatives?
Well, it would suggest that, wouldn't it?
Wouldn't it? Yeah. I'm the competent operative, and the guy with no helmet is the incompetent operative, including qualified tradesmen and women such as electricians and plumbers. Supervisors who account for 1 in 7 site staff, so it's no wonder you saw 2. There must have been more than 14 men there.
Yeah, right.
14 women. Due to health and safety regulations, will wear black and signallers wear orange. Everyone else, including architects, apprentices, planning inspectors and visitors, will wear blue.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
Site staff who are first aiders or fire marshals will also have a sticker on their hard hat.
Well, this will help.
Sticker on my hat.
Well, this will help you, won't it, when you're trying to figure out what's going on in your street, when people are sitting there chucking stuff out the window.
Absolutely.
Do they all wear hard hats, those guys?
Yes, they do.
Do they?
And all yellow as well.
All
I mean,
yellow?
It's amazing. Yeah, it's amazing. It's like the Yellow Hat Army, honestly.
So the yellow ones are going to disappear now?
No, they will... yeah, that's a good point.
You didn't mention
yellow.
yellow.
Hang on.
You didn't mention yellow. That's the whole point of the story, isn't it?
hang
Bob
on.
the Builder was wearing a yellow hat,
yes.
and now there will be no more yellow hats.
Hang on. The scheme which aims to make it easier to identify who's on site will be rolled out in the next year. But you say you've already seen it.
Well, I saw 2 black helmets today.
Okay. Highways England,
Hats.
which looks after roadworks on motorways and A roads, will use it from January. Let me see this. On a lot of the smaller sites, everyone pretty much wears random colours at the moment. These new rules will make it easier to identify key people on site, and crucially, you'll be able to see if any apprentices are working unsupervised.
It's probably the work of the health and safety executive, isn't it? So that when they go and visit these places, they know exactly who to talk to.
That's
now,
right.
a couple of tweets here on the Rolling Stones. Simon says Jones had already left the Stones and been replaced by Mick Taylor long before his death. And he says the concert in Hyde Park was actually the day after Jones's death.
Yes, that's right. It was when Mick Jagger wore a woman's dress,
So
like
he
a lace dress.
was already out of the band then.
Yeah, of course he was. Yeah, because he was out of his head. He's off his head. Yeah, that's right.
Martin says, when will Parry finally admit he's a raging right winger? The way he sneers every time he says liberal is a giveaway.
No, I don't. I don't sneer at all.
I didn't hear you sneering.
I don't sneer at all. You know, I mean, I haven't got any strong political views apart from the fact that I think you should earn a decent day's money for a decent day's work.
Unlike us.
Well, that's another story.
Yes.
I also think
We do work very hard, though.
I also think that people should not be dependent on the state, because I think it's a very cruel way of life to be placed in dependency. It's like being placed in jail.
Yeah.
Somebody else has got to, order your life around for you, and that's not a good thing.
Okay.
So it's as simple as that.
Okay, Pete says a guy who directs the crane is called a banksman.
A banksman?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So what sort of hat would he wear?
Well, don't know. There isn't a banksman's hat here.
No,
so,
no, he wears a blue one.
I should think he'd be classed as a competent operative, wouldn't
Yes,
he?
I
So
would
a
hope
white
so.
one. Yeah,
very possibly so.
I don't know what the signaller does.
Well, thank you very much for enlightening me on
Yeah,
all that.
okay.
I feel a lot more knowledgeable now.
Excellent.
I'm so glad.
Good.
10 minutes of my life I won't get back. Coming up next, we're going to talk about the death of books, or the decline of books, depending on who you believe. This is Talk Radio.
The 21st Century Dream Team of dialogue, debate and discourse. The Two Mics on Talk Radio. We'll get you talking.
Madness, they call it madness. Madness, they call it madness.
This is Talk Radio. We are the Two Mics. Coming up in the next hour, there's another exciting edition of Ask Porky. If you've never had a problem solved live on air, now's the time to do it. All you've got to do is send us a tweet at the Two Mics, hashtag it Ask Porky, or alternatively go and look on Facebook and you can find us there and you can post it there as well. And Mr. Parry is basically here to help. Could be a financial problem, perhaps. Could be a personal issue of one kind or another.
Yes.
Social etiquette, you're also quite good at as well.
Social etiquette.
And, because he notices trends and things like that.
I do.
You can always tell people which is the right way to go. Now, a trend that you have noticed as well is this trend of people reading less and less in the book form, anyway,
Yes,
I
indeed.
think, which is probably due to technology, perhaps. But let's talk to Bill Grimsey, who's written a book called Who Killed the High Street. Bill, a very good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon.
Yeah.
Now,
Hi,
did you sell more copies of your book in book form or on a sort of tablet form?
That was quite ironic. I mean, it was all about Who Killed the High Street, and the only way you could buy it was on Amazon.
Yeah, exactly.
It's quite ironic, really.
That's right. But one particular aspect of the high street, Bill, which is disappearing rapidly, and I'm not talking about Waterstones or W.H. Smith's, I'm talking about the small retail bookseller. I'm told that they're going out of fashion like hotcakes went out of fashion after Alfred burnt them. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean, and that's true. And I think, it's got to do with the way in which we buy and read books. I mean, we had the big surge in electronic books, and that kind of sort of hit a peak a year or so ago.
This was the Kinder thing, was it?
The Kindles, yeah. And I think that kind of hit a peak, and bookshops started to, or books, hard copies started to become favourable again. And of course, Amazon is extremely famous for books, very quick, efficient service, easy to use and easy to shop, and they're doing extremely well still. And the small bookshop has suffered as a consequence.
Yeah.
Now, in addition to that, you've now got a major problem hitting them all, not just bookshops, but all small independents, with the new rate system that's coming in. It's going to bump their rates up, and they're all going to suffer for that. But that's
the new the business rate review.
But isn't it also the case as well now that when you go to, say, supermarkets, which have become these kind of, places that sell everything, really, they only really sell books that are in the charts, don't they? So, I mean, the idea that you can go to a bookshop and sort of browse around and just see something that's quite interesting and unusual is kind of a thing of the past, isn't it?
Well, yes, it is, except people that want to do that can still find the odd Waterstones in big towns.
Yeah.
And they've got coffee shops in them, and it's nice and comfy, and you can sit in a comfy chair, and if you're a bookworm in that respect, you can still do it, but they're few and far between. Most people will know what they want and go onto Amazon and search for it.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. I mean, I'm talking about a little town in Surrey called Banstead, which I lived close by, and I used to wander down the high street, and there was a lovely bookshop there, and I'd go in, and they'd have all sorts of unusual books. And another bookshop, which I remember very well, we used to go to Cheltenham every year, for the National Hunt meeting, and then we'd go and see some friends in Marlborough afterwards, and there were all these fantastic bookshops in Marlborough which dealt in just racing books, Bloodstock and all that kind of stuff. They've all gone.
Well, it's just a reflection, and perhaps a sad reflection, on the way in which society and consumers are moving. I mean, my granddaughters are growing up.
Yeah.
They're 9, 7 and 3, and they've all got some kind of electronic device.
Sure.
They all know how to use them. They use them at school. I mean, they're just not going to shop the way we used to shop. They're not going to behave the way we used to behave. And we've got to get used to that.
Yeah, but wouldn't it be nice? Wouldn't it be nice to buy one of your granddaughters a lovely, classic copy of Alice in Wonderland or something like that? You get
it on the internet, though, don't you?
Yeah, absolutely, and we do. I mean, both of my the eldest two are into Harry Potter right now, and the 9-year-old's on book 6, and the 7-year-olds on book 3, and they love it. And we buy them the books, and then we get caught into taking them to Harry Potter world as well. That's another story.
Well, that's a very expensive day out.
Oops.
Has he gone?
Something there. I think the line's dropped.
Oh, I think we dropped Bill there. Because I was asking him, Bill was actually involved very heavily in the retail sector himself, and I was going to actually ask him if he was involved indeed in killing the high street, because he worked for Iceland, he worked for Wix,
he
worked for Kingfisher,
right?
And so the Bill,
none of them sold books though, did they?
Well, no, but but what they've done. I mean, when you go out now into whichever part of Britain you go to, I mean, you don't have to go very far, even in the centre of cities, to find one of those sort of retail parks where they've got like a B&Q,
that's right,
and they've got a pet food store. They've got a Halfords.
Yes.
They've got something like that.
Yes.
I think we got you back, Bill. Are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Oh, you are. Sorry.
I was hearing you, but you weren't hearing
right.
me.
Okay. Yeah. Well, so you heard what I was about to say to you, which was, I mean, in some ways, and I'm not blaming you personally for this, but the advent of the kind of retail park and the huge warehouse type shop like Wix or like B&Q or something like that, which you were involved with Wix, has kind of killed the high street as well, hasn't it?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, look, I retired 4 years ago, and I wrote the book because I didn't want to play golf. And basically, what I was trying to reflect upon is the changes that have happened throughout my career, which have led to where we are today. We just don't want the high street, by the way. I mean, if we did, we'd use it, but we don't. We want convenience, so we go out of town. We now want convenience, we go online. And it's going to change even further as technology improves. We're going to have shops without stock soon. And virtual shops. So, the whole world is spinning around a technology revolution, which on the one hand is a good thing. For those of us that are a bit grey-haired, we miss the past.
We've got virtual banks now. You try and get into a bank now and try and see a human being that you want to just have a quick word with. No, come back tomorrow, make an appointment, all that kind of stuff.
And a lot of mobile phone shops are the same. You go into a mobile phone shop and say you want to do something, they go, you have to go online.
Yeah, that's right.
You can't do it here.
Yeah. I'm just moving house, guys, and you can't even register for your council tax anymore without going online.
Yeah.
So the whole world's moving in a direction which the young people will just embrace. Well, so we have to get used to that, and bookshops are going to have to evolve into other things if they're going to retain their attraction. It's not just books.
But of course, one of the side side issues and side effects, I suppose, of all of this, and we see it an awful lot in London, I'm sure other cities, is the amount of traffic now which has been dredged up by all these vans delivering things from Amazon, from the online business, has completely brought Britain to a standstill. So, I mean, I know they're talking about bringing drones in to start delivering things, but they'll have to come up with a more sort of user-friendly way of delivering this stuff, won't they?
Yeah, they will, and they will find a better way of doing it. Otherwise, we'll all be ducking every 5 minutes as a drone flies by.
Well, exactly.
This will evolve. Shopping in the 21st century is not going to be anything like it was in the last century, and we have to stop sleepwalking into it. Now, our local authorities and our local business people have to get their heads together and start to regenerate the towns as community hubs, which might include a book area, and it might include, the coffee and all that kind of stuff that Waterstones have got, and brings people back into the high street for reasons that they know and like.
Yeah, well, you hope that happen, but I'm not that hopeful. The books I collect now, Bill, I go to like junk shops, or what do they call them, like antique shops and all that, and you can collect like old copies of the Roy of the Rovers Annual 1968 and all that kind of stuff, okay? Now, there's loads of access to those. People have just been throwing them out over the years, and that is one source of great books, bric-a-brac antique shops.
Well, yeah, I mean, the Roy of the Rovers Annual from 1968 is probably a collector's piece these days.
Exactly.
and that's good that you can still put your hands on it. Thank God people hold on to them.
Well, Bill, I can exclusively offer you a copy of Rooney Tunes, which is Mike Parry's best-selling book, now available on Amazon from just a penny. In fact, I can send you 100 round if you're moving house, because it will help you keep the doors open.
That's very nice, isn't it? Yeah.
That's very nice of you.
Yeah.
No thanks.
Yeah.
No thanks.
That's from the authorless man.
Yeah. Well, that's because I have critical faculties and I only publish things which I think I'm rather proud of.
You've never published anything.
I used to publish things for a living. You plank.
Rubbish.
I wrote for the Sunday Times, matey.
Yeah, well, you weren't publishing it, mate. Somebody else who was foolish enough to pay you to write the words was publishing it.
This is Talk Radio. Bill, thank you very much indeed. Bill Grimsey, the author of Who Killed the High Street, available on Amazon, of course, as well as all good bookshops, if you can find one. We got lots more coming up, including some big news from Slovakia. Right now, though, here's Victoria Bourne with some other big news.
Talk Radio.
Samsung has scrapped its Galaxy Note.
We'll get you talking.
Across the UK, online and on DAB.
The Two Mics on Talk Radio. We'll get you talking.
We are the Two Mics. Ask Porky coming up a little bit later on. Porky Vision, of course, tomorrow, for those of you who haven't heard the show before, which is Mr. Parry's review of all the good stuff on TV and some of the bad stuff as well.
Yes.
And also, of course, the Porky Quiz will be coming up on Thursday. So we'll need to pick a subject for that, but we can do that later on.
Yes.
Did you know, for example, that the Scots have a better quality of life than the English, according to people in Brussels?
Well, if people live in the Highlands and the Islands, where the air is fresh and the pressure of life is perhaps not as intense as a metropolis, and I can believe that. Yeah,
they claim they're more tolerant in Scotland and their schools are superior. But there's also a couple of other problems because apparently they've also got a much earlier life expectancy, so you die a lot sooner if you live in Scotland.
So, sorry, what do you mean a much earlier life expectancy? Do you mean a death expectancy?
Well, a death expectancy. Well, life expectancy is not so good, in other words.
I see what
so
you
you die younger.
No, they don't have as much longevity built into their existence.
And this may not come as a surprise to you if you've been there.
Yeah.
You're more likely to be the victim of an assault in Scotland than you are in England.
Particularly in Sauchiehall Street.
Where we are going, in fact, towards the Christmas time.
Not that we've ever been assaulted anywhere near the garage.
I certainly have not, no. Although I know people who have. Not that there's anything to do with the garage. But also, you're more likely to be subject to an alcohol-related death in Scotland, which might not come as any great surprise to you.
Well, as a nation, they have a reputation for being a heavy drinking race.
31.2 alcohol-related deaths for every 100,000 men in Scotland, and the English figure is only 18.1.
Really?
So it's nearly double.
Yeah, it's still not a lot, is it, for 31 people out of 100,000 to die of alcohol-related deaths?
I don't know, really. I suppose it's not as a percentage, it's not very much. Now, the reason I'm telling you that is I've had a tweet from Graham, who's obviously a member of the Tartan Army.
Right.
Who's out in Slovakia, because Scotland are playing Slovakia tonight out there in the World Cup qualifiers. And he says, I've just informed the boys in Slovakia, old MG is Scottish, and apparently they're now currently blaring out, there's only one Mike Graham.
Really?
In Slovakia.
Is that right?
Yeah.
How much have they been drinking?
Probably quite a lot, I think.
Yeah, I'm saying they have as well. Didn't they know you were Scottish before this?
Well, maybe not. I don't know.
See, I think you're the sort of guy who doesn't really care what his identity is as long as he seeks popularity somewhere.
I do believe, my seeking of popularity is as of nothing compared to yours. That's all that you do all the time.
Not at all.
My identity, as I see myself, is basically British. But my parents are Scottish, so I'm more Scottish than I am English.
Well, you say that, but then you have this terrible thing about people in the north of England who you despise.
I don't despise anyone.
You do.
No.
You don't like anybody who comes from north of the M25.
You've
told me
rubbish.
that before. You've actually said you don't like northern people.
That's not true.
Listen, talking about Scotland, I've got something to tell you about porridge.
Porridge?
Now, you were talking about porridge the other day.
I was saying that Gareth Southgate is about as exciting as 4-day-old porridge. Yeah, that was why we were talking about porridge.
Well, funny you say that, but then I said to you, do you eat porridge? You said, yes, you love porridge and you have it all the time, okay? So I thought I'd find out...
Well, I don't have it all the time. No, that's not what I said. You're incapable. I mean, I'm amazed that you ever worked as a reporter, right? Because you are incapable of reporting anything as it was actually said.
You said you often have porridge.
Yeah, you just told me I have it all the time.
Yeah, well, if you have it all the time, during the
often
course of,
and all the time are not the same thing.
During the course of 3 or 4 months, you're having it all the time. Anyway, listen, can I tell you this?
Go on.
Traditional Scots porridge, if you really want to,
Scots porridge oats.
Yeah. Can only be served to get the right flavour in a wooden bowl.
In a wooden bowl.
And eaten with a wooden stick.
Okay. Well, I haven't got a wooden bowl.
Well, we'll find one.
And I don't. Well, I suppose I could find a wooden stick easily enough.
Right. What do you think the wooden stick that serves you that you put your porridge in your mouth with is called?
Pardon?
What I want to, you claimed you're Scottish, right? You've just claimed you're Scottish.
Yeah.
So what's
my parents are Scottish, yes.
What's the name of the stick you use, the porridge stirrer?
I don't use a stick.
To put the porridge in your mouth.
Well, I don't use a stick.
Well, if you did, what would it be called?
I've no idea.
A spurtle.
A spurtle?
Yeah.
There we are. That sounds a bit like a spoon.
And the golden spurtle
Yeah.
is the trophy for the annual World Porridge Making Championships.
Is that right?
Which take place in...
I don't know, Scotland?
Cambridge.
Cambridge?
Oh,
well, our friend from Cambridge could go there and tell them all about how disappointed she is with the porridge and how it's not very good.
The Scots have a word called porriginous.
Porriginous,
yeah.
do they? Okay.
Yeah,
what does that mean?
Well...
Like porridge?
No.
Of a consistency like porridge?
No, it means you're suffering from ringworm.
What's that got to do with porridge?
Nothing. But
right.
I thought I would catch you out.
Well, do you know that
one.
in the days... Well, you can catch me out on any number of things. In the days when the Highlanders used to go to battle against the dreaded English, they used to actually make the porridge so hard that they could carry it around like it was just like a sort of biscuit.
Oh, really?
Because they wanted to take it with them because it was nourishing. And they didn't want to just eat it, before the battle. They sometimes wanted to eat it during the battle.
So Braveheart might have had a sort of a block of porridge under his kilt.
Yeah, you'd have like a block of porridge in your sporran.
Yeah. Golly.
That's what you would do with it.
He received comfort like cold porridge. Is the only reference to porridge in Shakespeare.
Is this some kind of porridge annual?
No, that's in The Tempest. Okay.
Is it?
Yeah. And the use of the word porridge as UK slang for a prison sentence can be position dated back to 1950,
right,
when they first started serving porridge in prison.
Yeah, I presumed it would have come from something like that.
Exactly, yeah. And
so this is porridge facts you've got. Really.
Yeah, because you were going on about porridge the other day.
I made one reference to porridge the other day.
Okay.
I made one reference to it.
And now, we were talking about the Beatles, about the Rolling Stones earlier.
Yes.
And about, the girlfriends in their life and all that.
Anita Pallenberg.
Yeah, Marianne Faithfull, who we mentioned as well, she said once, the food that's never let me down, men have let me down, people have let me down, but the food that's never let me down in life is porridge.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Well, good for her.
Amazing.
Well, I tell you what, I saw her at the Roundhouse, didn't I? Was it earlier this year, I think it was?
That's right.
And she was brilliant. And she was drinking tea on stage, which I thought was very much in keeping with her status now.
What was in her teacup?
No, I think she's now sort of physically, sort of really a national treasure type figure.
Is she?
Marianne Faithfull, yeah.
Very
funny.
Tell you what might have been in a teacup, because this is quite interesting. Now, when were you first aware of Prosecco being sort of introduced into this country? Prosecco, is it?
Yeah.
The stuff that's like fake champagne?
Yeah. I would say probably about, 2 or 3 years ago, not that long ago.
I think about 2 years ago, my niece, who is a professional surveyor...
I've met your niece.
Yes, that's right.
Very
Who
nice
works in
young
London.
woman. Very
I
nice.
remember we met up somewhere and...
We met for dinner, didn't we?
We did, yeah, but this is on a separate occasion.
Oh, sorry.
When we met, we were having a drink after work or something, and I said, what can I get you, my dear? She said, I'll give me a Prosecco. And I said, well, don't want a glass of champagne? That's what you normally have. She said, no, Prosecco's easier. I said, what is it? And anyway, apparently it's like fake champagne,
I'll tell you where I
isn't it?
think they had it, before it became sort of this massive, ridiculous sort of phenomenon. Because
Yes.
it is. I mean, I think people are almost now buying more
yeah.
Prosecco than champagne because
That's
it's cheaper. I think some Italian restaurants used to have it.
Did they?
Like sort of traditional Italian restaurants, you'd go and they would sometimes give you a glass of Prosecco as like an aperitif.
Sure. I mean, I can't drink champagne or Prosecco because it affects my heart. Only 1/3 of my heart
we did
works.
have some in Edinburgh, didn't we?
Yeah, but we had it diluted with orange, didn't
Yes, Bucks Fizz.
No, what do the Americans call
Mimosa.
it? Mimosa. We had a few mimosas, that's right. Yeah, but anyway.
We're not going into Bobcat Bob territory.
Oh, I'm not going to Bobcat Bob. The reason I'm telling you all this is because guess what?
What? I thought you were talking about porridge. What are you doing? Going through the encyclopedia and letter P?
No. The reason actually, maybe. The reason we're talking about this is because the Italians have, seized the Prosecco market.
Well, it comes from Italy, doesn't it?
It comes from Italy, and guess what? The Spanish aren't very happy about it. Guess what the Spanish are going to do?
Well, because the Spanish don't really make Prosecco.
No, they're going to flood the country with sangria.
No, are they?
Now, what do you know about sangria?
Yeah, well, sangria is an interesting drink. It's one of those...
Cheap punch, it's called.
It's one of those things you drink when you're a teenager, isn't it? And when I went to Spain a few years ago, I went and for some reason... The place we were living in was in this town, which everything was always closed.
Yes, right.
You could never find anything to buy, right?
Yeah.
And I wanted to have some sangria, so I took off and found a petrol station about a couple of miles down the road.
Where was this?
In Spain, just north of Barcelona,
okay,
outside of
Barcelona.
just outside of Girona. actually.
Hana.
Yeah, which bizarrely has more Michelin-star restaurants than any other place in the world. But anyway, we'll get back to that later.
Right, okay.
And anyway, in this petrol station, they had a fridge with stuff in it.
Yeah.
And they had a bottle of sangria.
Right.
Which I thought, well, I'll buy
just
that.
the one?
Well, it was like a sort of, you know, those like sort of thick-ended bottles.
Yeah, I
it was
know.
a bit like why you buy orange juice in.
Yeah, yeah.
And I took it home and I mixed it with some fruit.
Right.
And I must admit, I remembered it as a really nice drink from when I was younger.
Yeah.
It was horrendous.
Well,
it was horrible.
It says here, the problem is that the image they've got, Sangria trying to flood the country with, Spain are trying to flood the country with Sangria. All these marketing men have been sent over to say, this is the next great market.
Right.
The problem is that one guy here who's been told to sell it says lots of British people think of Sangria as a cheap, nasty drink they enjoyed on holiday in Spain when they were younger.
Yeah.
When they get home, they do not feel the same about it, which is, I think, is absolutely true.
It's not like having a Pimm's, you know. A nice glass of Pimm's in the summer is lovely.
That's right. It says it's not something they consider as more expensive brand or are prepared to spend a bit more money on.
Yeah.
Now, I mean, my first experience with Sangria was, you know, when you go to these, I mean, believe it or not, it was such cattle class stuff, the package holidays when I was sort of 17 or something. Right. You'd get on this coach and, well, where are we going? Oh, going out for the barbecue dinner. Oh, that's great. Okay.
Oh, yeah, because they had the whole programme.
Yeah,
events, right?
That's right, barbecue dinner.
Yeah.
So you get on this sort of battered old coach and you drive up the hill there, you know, to a farmhouse, and the farmhouse has got all these tables outside, you know, look like a prisoner of war camp, really.
Right.
And you sit there, you know, and then one woman comes around and puts this revolting piece of pork in front of you on a plate. Right. But then another guy comes round with a cloth, and he literally reaches round, grabs your chin, pulls your head back.
Oh, is this the thing when you're drinking out of the goat skin?
That's right.
Which is very dangerous.
And then pour it into your face. Yeah. Sometimes it went in your mouth, but usually it went in your eyes and your hair.
In those days, right, when the invasion started from Britain, they must have had such disregard for the Brits.
Oh, unbelievable.
Because, I mean, you know, Spain's a very civilised place, right?
I agree.
And you see people sitting, you know, very, very quietly having cups of coffee, maybe a little glass of wine, and suddenly the Brits arrive. They're all absolutely flat out, completely drunk.
That's right,
within
cheap
minutes.
Booze. Yeah. But what I'm saying is they never even offered you a glass or anything like that, or poured it. No, they literally grabbed your head, poured it in your mouth. That's your lot, you know, and then we went to the next one. And I
remember buying one of those goat skin things.
I bet you did, like the Spanish donkey.
Yeah, because I thought it was for water. When I was about 14 or something like that, I brought it home. Didn't realise it was actually supposed to put wine in it and just pour it down your throat.
Yeah, I felt the same. Anyway, this chap here who's...
I don't think it'll catch on. Sangria is a mass market.
Well, there's a chap here called Cheles Alcalala.
Alcalala.
Sorry, Cheles Alcalala Lolea.
Okay.
Lolea.
Easy for you to say.
He's a marketing director, you know, involved in trying to introduce Sangria into this country.
Right.
He says, we are determined to overcome the attitude, OK? We want to promote Sangria as a quality product, a niche product.
Yeah, good luck with that.
Yeah, hang on. That competes with the likes of Prosecco. He says... Lolea says, I'm hoping to sign contracts with Harrods, Fortnum and Mason to increase the prestige of the drink.
Well, that's a good idea. But unfortunately, the reason Prosecco is so successful is that it makes you feel like you're drinking champagne, but it's cheaper.
Yes.
So it doesn't have a kind of, you know, you don't feel like you're going cheap on anything.
I totally agree.
I mean, if you were to take somebody out for dinner and ask them if they'd like a bottle of Prosecco, they're not going to go, you're a cheapskate. Yeah. However, if you took them out and said, how do you fancy a jug of sangria?
A jug of sangria.
I don't think they'd be looking at you the same way.
I've just found out that actually the guy's name is Cheles Alcala. And the Lolea bit is what he's named his sangria.
Oh, right.
So Lolea is the new sangria.
That's the name of the sangria, okay.
Lolea.
I remember making it once because you could actually make sangria out without having actually the basic bottle of sangria.
Yes.
You just put red wine and brandy.
Well,
but I actually made it in such a way once for a party that it was lethal.
Oh,
it was like rocket fuel.
It's got to set fire to it.
Well, I did like a bottle of brandy and a bottle of red wine.
Isn't that what Chris did and burned his house down in America?
It was so strong that people were just getting absolutely, bladderated.
Absolutely. So it's meant to be made up of quality wine, chopped fruit, orange juice, and sometimes brandy, as you quite say.
But you've got to be careful how much brandy you put in.
Yeah, exactly. But anyway, this Lolea, right, this is four guys who've got together and they considered making a high-quality sangria. It's made in Zaragoza in eastern Spain.
Zaragoza?
Zaragoza.
Yeah, I've been there.
Actually, Everton played the real Zaragoza.
Did they?
I'll tell you what it was. They played him in the European Cup Winners' Cup in 1966 after
quite
winning
a nice
the FA
town,
Cup.
actually, Zaragoza.
I didn't go there, actually. It was when they came in. I think we got knocked out.
Yeah, probably.
But anyway.
That's what usually happens.
So, made in Zaragoza is... I'll ignore that. Eastern Spain, it uses local citric juices, but adds cinnamon
cinnamon.
Yeah, cinnamon in the red sangria and vanilla in the white. So there's two sorts of sangria, red and white. I didn't realise that. Cinnamon is used in the red and vanilla in the white. Okay. Well, vanilla's like ice cream, isn't it?
Well, no, vanilla essence is what you put in cakes sometimes if you're making cakes.
Yes, okay, yeah, but it still tastes like vanilla ice cream.
Well, not really. Vanilla ice cream tastes like vanilla.
Yeah, that's right. That's
not the other way round.
Okay. Now, it says the drinks are then carbonised, but without preservatives to give a fizz.
Uh-huh.
Okay?
Yeah.
The origins of sangria have long been disputed.
So where is it actually from, then? Zaragoza? Is that what you're saying? That's the origin of it.
Zaragoza, yeah.
Okay.
But it says the drink is said to have been concocted originally in Spain, Portugal, the West Indies, and even Britain as long ago as the 14th century.
Oh, really? Well, it is a sort of fortified
wine. You won't
wine.
get me drinking it anyway.
Well, it's a sort of fortified wine.
It's not. It's
well,
like it's like a cheap, very weak stuff, isn't it?
Yeah, but fortified wine is effectively wine with brandy in it.
Yeah, I suppose so.
So it's a bit like that.
Yeah.
So, well, maybe we'll take you out for some sangria somewhere.
Yes, sangria.
Once the weather gets a little bit warmer.
Maybe we go to Zaragoza.
Very possibly
for
so.
the sangria.
Now, coming up in the next hour, we're going to have some Ask Porky questions. We're also going to speak to somebody from Bug's Life about butterflies, because you're a bit worried about them, aren't you?
Well, it's not me that's worried about them. It's the naturalists who are saying there's a dearth of them.
A dearth of butterflies. This is Talk Radio.
Across the UK, online and on Talk Radio.
The 21st Century Dream Team of dialogue, debate and discourse. The Two Mics on Talk Radio. We'll get you talking.
This is Talk Radio. We are the Two Mics. Ask Porky coming up in the next hour. We'll also be talking a bit more about butterflies as well as finding out. Do you know why I'm feeling very sort of, shall we say, full of the joys of spring today, by the way? Because I actually slept for 12 hours.
What?
I slept for 12 hours last night.
There's something wrong with you. Go and see a doctor.
No, I don't think there is.
That's so unnatural.
No, I know it would be to you because you only sleep about 3 hours a day.
Yes.
But I had quite a busy weekend one way or another. You know, I drove down to Sussex early Thursday,
like
Friday
you think
morning.
I didn't have a busy weekend?
Well, I know you had a busy weekend, but you don't need sleep. You've told me that before.
Yeah, well,
you exist on 3 or 4 hours of sleep a night.
That's
You've said
because I
that.
have very low blood pressure because only 1/3 of my heart works.
Really?
Yeah.
Do you think you would sleep more then if you didn't have your heart problem?
I don't know.
I mean, did you used to sleep more?
I don't know. You know, fortunately, I have the crippling illness of my heart to cope with every day, so I don't know.
Fortunately?
No, unfortunately.
Oh, unfortunately.
So I don't have...
Well, funnily enough, there's a question related to that in Ask Porky, which you may be able to answer.
Okay, yeah.
But, I've always been slightly dubious about your supposed crippling condition.
Oh, really? Have you?
Given how able you are to work so hard and, exist without any sleep.
Yeah, but I have iron discipline the rest of my life to facilitate my being able to do things.
That does not matter.
As you well know.
I mean, iron discipline is all very well, but you cannot, cheat the old, the health system of your body.
Well,
you can't just suddenly make yourself better.
So much of it is mind over matter.
Well, you
Believe
say
me.
that.
No, my consultants have told me in the past I've
rubbish.
got iron will,
so much of
mind over matter.
No, so much of it is that you were always exaggerating how ill you were in the first place.
Considering I was 7 months on the heart transplant list, I think that's a bit of a ridiculous thing to say.
Yeah, and then what happened?
Well, then, for some unknown reason, they didn't... Well, I walked out the hospital. I said, I can't stay here forever.
Yeah,
I said, listen, how long is this going to go on for?
And how many other people who were 7 months on the heart transplant list walked out of the hospital?
None of them.
None of them. And they were all taken out in a box, right?
Well, maybe, but I mean, the point is, it's mind over matter. I just said, look, my life is on hold. My career is disappearing down the tubes. I'm not staying here any longer. Why can't I just go home and give me a beep or something or whatever, and let me know when the heart's
just
ready?
come back when the heart's ready.
Yeah, exactly. That's
when
right.
When some poor soul has
and then when I got out of the
the
confines of the hospital and started walking small distances, like 4 or 5 yards, having not walked for weeks, months.
Yeah.
And then I started getting better.
Had your legs not sort of atrophied? Muscles in your legs?
No. You get physio and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, not a problem.
Because I found when I had my arm in a sling for about 6 weeks, I broke my wrist.
Oh, it can be terrible. You lose all the muscle on your arm.
Literally, when I took the cast off, my arm would withered away to nothing.
Sure.
I went to try and play golf immediately afterwards.
Difficult.
And it was actually painful to try and hit the ball. It took me about 3 months to get it back to normal.
I can imagine.
Yeah.
Now, much of this show...
Sorry to bother you.
No, not at all.
No, you carry
much
on.
of this show seems to be sort of positioned around drink and food and all that kind of stuff.
Much of our lives are positioned around those
Well,
two
you
things.
say so. But I'm outraged by another bit of supposed legislation which is coming in that restaurants and cafes and pubs are to be named and shamed.
Named and shamed?
Named and shamed.
By whom?
Unless they make food portions smaller or take a lot of the sugar out of their sweets and a new war on puddings.
Okay. Well, I tell you what, I mean, there are certainly some places where you go where they give you too much food. I mean, I tend not to go to restaurants like that.
Happens in America a lot.
It does happen in America, yeah, absolutely. But, I mean, it can happen. No, it's happening here as well. There are lots of places where you go and you just want a little starter or something like that, and they bring you this massive amount of food.
Yeah.
I mean, funnily enough, in Spain, when we were there, in Mallorca, after you popped in and popped out again, the last night we were there, we had all this food in the fridge.
Right.
And there was a school of thought from some people saying, why don't we just use up all the food in the fridge? And I said, well, to be honest, I don't really want to do that. I'm afraid we just have to throw the food out.
Yeah, that's right.
Because
dregs and all that sort of stuff.
Oh, look, we've got some eggs here. Leftovers, sort of, broccoli over there. Don't want to do that. So we went out into the town and we ordered, and there was, 6 of us, I suppose, and we ordered a load of food. Yeah. And they brought the starters. The starters were massive. I ordered some anchovies, right? I thought I'd get a little plate of anchovies.
Like little fish, are they?
Little fish, yeah. And they brought a bowl which must have had about 30 anchovies in it.
Right.
And I just thought...
Not very big, though, are they?
Well, they're not very big, but still, it's too much. Wanted about 10.
Yeah, okay.
Anyway, that's my thought.
All right, well, that's great. Well, it says here, Jeremy Hunt, the Health Secretary. Is he still the Health Secretary in the reshuffle? I think he is,
I think he is, yeah. I suppose he's happy to be talking about something other than the junior doctor strike.
Yeah, I suppose he is, you're right, yeah. Told food companies they've got to be part of reforms to reduce obesity because eating out is no longer a treat. It's something people do as a matter of course.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not sure about that.
Well, when was the last time you ate out?
Well, I eat out every weekend.
Do you?
Yes.
What, you mean in a restaurant?
Well, at least once a weekend.
I don't mean in a pub. I don't mean Wetherspoons. I mean in a restaurant.
How do you define... How do you differentiate a pub from a restaurant?
Well, a pub is a pub and a restaurant is a restaurant.
No, I don't agree.
Simple.
The place I use down on the coast is... it's a beautiful big building. It's got 4 or 5 different rooms.
Yeah.
Some of them are designated...
But if it's a pub, it's a pub.
No, some of them are designated restaurant areas.
Right.
Some of them are,
I'll tell you what, if you're
get yourself a sandwich
if you're in a restaurant and it has
some of them are... waiter service to your table.
Here's the clue, right? If you're in a restaurant and it says this is the restaurant area, then it's not a restaurant. Because if you're in a real restaurant, it doesn't have a sign that says restaurant area because the whole place is a restaurant. Yeah, well, that's the obvious bit.
You're being a bit obstreperous today.
I'm not at all.
Pub
I feel
restaurant
very serene.
is a very acceptable description of a lot of places in this country.
I agree with you.
Right, well,
but what I'm saying is that it's different going out to a pub for dinner than it is going out to a restaurant.
I prefer a pub. I prefer a pub restaurant, a high-quality one.
Really?
Anyway, it says here, look, chains such as Pizza Express, Starbucks, McDonald's and Gourmet Burger Kitchen have been told to step up as part of the government initiative to tackle obesity. Efforts by dining outlets to make their food and drink healthier will be compared publicly as part of the government strategy. Right, it says here, food outlets outside the home will have to cut sugar and reduce the size of the puddings, the cakes and the pastries they sell to the public.
So when what
kind of country are we living in now? We've got food czars telling us how much we can eat. This is an outrage.
Well, why does that bother you so much?
It's an outrage. I'll eat as much as I damn well want.
Well, I think that's a very good point.
And when people are telling me what I eat and how I eat and all that kind of stuff, they can bog off. I'm telling you.
Well, I feel the same way about the noise reduction headphones. Where I was telling you this before, if you've got an iPhone, I don't know what it's like on your phone, but if you plug headphones in, right, you can't, you're not allowed to listen to music as loud as you want to.
Yeah.
Because there's an EU restriction. Or maybe after Brexit, this will be something that improves.
But that disturbs other people, doesn't it?
Well, it doesn't necessarily. Depends.
I think that's designed not to disturb other people.
No, it's not. No, it's not. It's designed for you not to harm your hearing.
Yes.
I went to so many rock concerts when I was a teenager.
That's right. You could be deaf.
My ears have already been damaged.
Yeah,
Pete Townshend's gone deaf.
Yeah, well,
because he
stood
in front of a Marshall amp for his whole career.
He did, yeah.
But I don't want the EU telling me that I can't listen to loud music.
No.
And the only way I can do it is to listen to it on if I'm on the tube, for example, and I listen to music, I can't hear it.
Can't hear it. No.
You don't care, do you?
Well, I think...
This is another part of my life you don't care about.
I think it's something that, not many people have got any sympathy with you about, because it's your personal problem.
Okay.
I'm trying to save...
Save the time, by the way.
I'm trying to save the world. Just listen to this. This is what I hate. In a private meeting with food companies, Mr. Hunt, who's a government minister, so he gets all the trappings and benefit of chauffeur-driven cars, massive salary, expenses...
Free dinner out as well.
one of society's privileged. He actually says, this is ludicrous, he says... Going out to eat is no longer a treat. It's a regular habit for many families and is contributing significantly to the extra calories and sugar. We expect the whole of the out-of-home sector, coffee shops, pubs and family restaurants, quick-service restaurants, takeaway cafes, to deliver on sugar reduction. That is rubbish.
Yeah.
the majority of people in this country regard going out once a month to the Chinese or the Indian or something like that, or even to the, the carvery or something like that, as a treat. People, I mean, to suggest that our society is now so wealthy.
I take my kids out for a treat. If we go out for dinner, that's a treat.
Exactly.
And I would not consider myself to be someone who can't afford to do that.
I totally agree.
It's a treat. We don't do it all the time.
I totally agree.
Absolute rubbish.
I mean, that shows
Jeremy Hunt has proved himself to be not the world's greatest minister.
A government minister completely out of touch with the population he's supposed to serve.
We don't like to mention him too much, though.
You serve us. We pay your wages.
Yeah, all right. Calm down.
Tell me how much I'm going to eat.
Calm down.
Tell me how much.
See, look at the time.
Tell me how much spotted dick I can consume.
Steady.
Okay.
Take it easy. Now, coming up in the next hour, ask Porky. You don't ask him about that, but you can ask him about a great many other things. We've got some news coming up shortly.
Talk Radio. Dial up some dial. Across the UK, online and on DAB.
It's a new frontier in broadcasting. The Two Mics on Talk Radio.
We'll get you talking.
Good afternoon, I'm Mike Graham, he's Mike Parry, you're listening to the Two Mics. I've got a tweet here from somebody saying, what's happened to John Holmes? I've told you before, he's gone to Rwanda to look for some gorillas. I'm not quite sure whether he's going to be back or what he's going to be like.
Sounds
when he
very
gets back.
exciting, that
does
doesn't
sound
it?
very exciting.
Yeah.
Gorillas in the mist, he's off doing that.
Yeah.
We're going to have Ask Porky coming up in this hour, so if you've never had a problem solved live on air, now's the time to do it. You can tweet us at the Two Mics or at Mike Parry 8 or at IROMG. You can text us, of course, here at Talk Radio. Text the word talk plus your message to 87222. And if you want to file in a phone call as well and do it live on air, you can do that. 0844 499 1000. We'll be talking butterflies in this hour as well. You're listening to the Two Mics with me, Mike Graham, and Mike Parry on Talk Radio.
Across the UK, online and on DAB.
The Two Mics on Talk Radio. We'll get you talking.
Now, funnily enough, talking about food, right? Last week we were talking about various things that I make because we're going to do a new
exotic things. Yeah,
we've got a new website coming out very soon.
We certainly have
about a month's time, perhaps something like that.
Maybe sooner than that.
Currently being strategically engineered for us.
Indeed.
in a country in Europe, which will currently remain nameless. But
in Germany.
Yeah, well, I didn't.
What's that matter?
Well, because you have to tell everybody everything.
No.
You're always giving stuff away.
I'm delighted that it's got a continental flavour to it.
Yeah, you're always giving stuff away. Is it going to be in German and English then?
No, of course not, you idiot.
Why not?
Well, it's an American company manufacturing our new website in Germany.
Okay.
So it will be in English.
Right.
Yes.
Well, I'm looking forward to it coming out.
Yes.
We had some pictures done for it the other day. But we were talking about some of the dishes that I make, right? And a guy on Twitter picked me up on this.
Oh, yes.
Because I was talking about how I cook paella quite a lot, you know. And
you eat what?
Paella.
Sorry, you mean paella?
No, I mean paella.
Paella.
It's Spanish.
Since when did you have a damaged cleft?
I don't have a damaged cleft, thank you.
Damaged
palate.
Palate, yeah, cleft palate, sorry.
I don't have a cleft palate. I say paella in the same way that you say Barcelona. Or you say Zaragoza. Right? You don't say Zaragoza, do you? Or you did, but I mean, that's because you have no feel for language.
I don't think so.
Anyway, paella, as I call it,
Yep.
and I make it with chorizo, right? And this guy was giving me a load of grief on Twitter saying, oh, you've made the same mistake as Jamie Oliver. You don't make it with chorizo. And actually, that's completely incorrect. Because, yes, it's true to say that the original paella, which was made in Valencia, if you don't mind if I pronounce it like that, do you?
No, go on.
Didn't have chorizo in it.
Right.
But in fact, I've got a paella cookbook, right, which has an entire, panoply.
Sorry, you've got a whole cookbook dedicated to cooking paella.
Yes, yeah. Because you can make all kinds of different kinds. And basically, I mean,
why would anybody waste their time reading that?
I bought it as a present. You know, people buy presents for me because people love me, members of my family. Yeah. I realise that you always are.
Sure, they love you. If you buy your books on paella, they might be able to tell. Might be trying to tell you something.
Well, no, they know that I enjoy cooking, so I like to have. I mean, one of the things I got from it was, in fact, a North African recipe, which you make instead of using rice, you use barley, and it's really good.
What to make? What
to make a paella, which is a different sort of flavour.
What's it called?
Paella. I've been saying it for the last 10 minutes.
No, you don't put barley in paella.
Well, but there is a recipe from North Africa which you make it with barley.
Right,
that's my point. Okay,
sorry, I'm losing the will to live here.
And it's got Ras El Hanout in it as well.
Right.
You know what that is?
What?
Ras El Hanout. It's a spice.
Yeah.
Why are you looking at me like I'm talking gibberish?
Because it sounds like, a sort of the Spanish equivalent of tomato ketchup or something.
Well, no, what it is the North African equivalent of just
tomato
a kind of
ketchup.
allspice.
Yeah,
No, it's allspice. It's a sort of it actually means chef's choice.
Oh, right, okay.
Is what it means.
Ooh,
but
good.
anyway,
Thank God for
the
that.
point is, you're always accusing me of being a food snob. The point is, there are so many food snobs out there, and I'm not one of them, right? Even though you think I am.
Yes.
And because the idea that Jamie Oliver makes a paella and he puts chorizo in it is good enough for me. You know, this guy's a very well-known
I don't
chef.
think nobody cares about this, you know.
What do you mean nobody? Why are you saying everything I'm talking to you about today? You say nobody cares.
Well, I just don't know why you think that an issue of national interest is whether or not you put colourFul, is it? What, chorizo,
Spanish sausage,
chorizo into a paella.
Well, here's some other culinary crimes, of which you may find yourself guilty. Putting pineapple on pizza. Right?
Yeah.
You do that all the time, don't you?
I do. And I don't see that as a culinary crime at all.
When you went out on your date with that woman, right, who shall also remain nameless,
yes.
Did you not take her to Pizza Express?
Oh, that was another woman. That was a business meeting.
I'm not talking about another. I don't care which woman we're talking about.
Yeah, we went to Pizza Express.
We went to Pizza Express. And you had?
They don't do pineapple.
Yeah, but did you not order it specially?
Yeah, I did actually. Yes, I did.
They
put some on for me. That's right. Yeah.
Did they have to go out and buy a tin?
No, you idiot. It was pineapple, ham, and mushroom.
Pineapple, ham, and mushroom
on thin base, and it was great.
That's horrendous.
Absolutely
anyway,
great.
According to these people, it is a culinary crime. Also, adding chicken to pasta, which the Italians never do. Right? They never put pasta.
I don't eat
with
a lot of pasta, but if I do, I eat it as spag bol, so I wouldn't know about chicken and pasta.
Yeah.
Do you put chicken in pasta?
I don't think I've ever made a chicken pasta dish, but you go to a restaurant in Britain,
yes,
which is a pasta restaurant,
yes,
and they will give you something with chicken in it.
Will they?
And which is something. I mean, because quite often, I'm going to Italy in October, right? This is October, isn't it? A couple of weeks.
Yes, okay.
And the things that you can eat in Italy are so much lighter and so much more kind of enjoyable, if you like.
Why don't you move to Italy then?
Well, I'd love to move to Italy.
Yeah.
I don't speak Italian.
Actually, there's quite a few million people listening now. Would what's that thing called when you all get money together to make something happen? Crowdfunding.
Yeah,
we'll have a crowdfunding collection for you.
You don't need to. You've got enough money for yourself.
No. I'm talking about you.
You could just do it.
We can buy you a little shack somewhere in Umbria or something like that. You can go and retire.
How about this? In Italy, a pepperoni pizza comes with peppers, not with sliced sausage.
Oh, yeah?
Okay.
Well, isn't pepperoni a sliced sausage?
Yes.
Well, then you can't have a pepperoni pizza without pepperoni,
Well, in
can
Italy
you
can. But, I mean, of course, Italy wasn't the place where pizza came from anyway. Pizza was originally sort of born in New York, wasn't it? And it says here in Spain, the indiscriminate use of chorizo has long upset Spaniards.
Really?
Chorizo soup, chicken and chorizo
My heart goes
pie.
out to the Spanish nation for having that problem.
How about this? Have you ever put curry sauce on your chips?
Don't you think the Spanish nation are more worried about the collapse of the Spanish economy than whether they
maybe they ought to be.
Whether they put chorizo in the blinking paella?
Maybe they ought to be. Have you ever put curry sauce on chips? It's big in Glasgow, that. Curry, chips and sauce.
Well, do you know what? The strangest thing is, it's funny you should say this. I went to a place called the King of School Chester, as you know from experience,
you have
right?
mentioned that, yeah.
When we were about 8 or 9, I remember, because you're queued up for your nosh at lunchtime in the refectory, because that's what it was called in our school, because it was a posh school, you know. And I remember queuing up, and you got this pie, right?
Yeah.
And then you got these chips, because nobody cared about stodgy food in those days. And then there was a woman with...
Well, don't worry. I mean, even now in school dinners, right, where they're always talking about, we must eat healthily. Yeah. I mean, you should see what they get in my kids' school dinners. I mean, it is
Pie
not
and
healthy.
Chips.
Well, they have pizzas, they have chips, with everything.
Okay.
Burgers, sausages.
Yeah. Well, it's convenient, isn't it?
Yeah.
So you got the pie and then you got the chips, and there was a woman with a big ladle.
Yeah.
And I'd never seen this before.
Right.
Remember, I'm talking about Britain sort of 40 years ago, 45 years ago, and the influence of the subcontinent of India was minimal on society in those days.
Yeah.
So, and this woman then ladled all this stuff on my food.
Right. With gravy of some kind.
Well, I didn't know what it was, you see, and I said, sorry. Well, I didn't say sorry, what's that, because I was about 8 years of age. You didn't question the cook, did you?
You just
put it on.
Kept going.
So then we got back to our table, and I said to my mate, I said, what's this then? He said, it's curry sauce.
Curry sauce.
I said, curry sauce? I said, what's that?
Yeah.
But it smelt different, And he said, that's it's just like sort of exotic food and all that. I said, why are we eating it? I said, I don't remember my mum and dad telling me I could eat this sort of stuff.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Or,
you thought it might do you some damage.
That's how rare it was.
Well, my mother, who,
God
bless her, was never much of a cook.
Right.
Being Scottish, they used to pretty much eat mince with everything.
Yes,
mince you'd make spaghetti bolognese, you'd have shepherd's pie.
Sure.
Sometimes you'd have mince and potatoes. But she used to make a mince curry, which would only literally have a load of curry powder on it. So you'd fry up the mince and put curry powder on it, and that was your curry.
Did you buy the curry powder separately in a little cardboard carton?
Yeah, it was like a little spice
and just spread it on and mix it all up?
Yeah.
Well, I can't see anything wrong with that.
Actually, it tasted quite good.
That's what I was going to say.
Yeah.
I mean, wouldn't that be a bit like the equivalent of making that stuff that you get with kidney beans?
What, chili?
Yes.
Yeah, not dissimilar to that.
What's that cream that you eat with chili, by the way? What is it?
Well, you can have sour cream.
Sour cream,
yeah.
That's it. Where do you get that from?
You can have creme fraiche. You buy it in a dairy section of a supermarket.
Can you buy sour cream?
Yes.
You sure?
Of course.
I didn't know that, you see.
You didn't know you could buy sour cream?
No, I didn't know.
Why not?
Well, I thought
Well, next time you're seeing where they sell the milk.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And then they sell the yoghurt.
Yes.
Well, it's there.
I'll try it.
Yeah. If you want to be more health conscious, you can get creme fraiche.
I'll tell you something about mince, because I love mince.
Yeah.
I really do.
I'm thinking of seriously doing a mince cookbook.
We'll do a mince cookbook.
100 things you can do with mince.
Well, I'm telling you, if it's quality mince, it's great. Cheap mince is not good because you eat lots of bone, right?
No. Well, you also don't want to get the one that's too high in fat.
No, that's right. I tell you, but you can, if you go to a quality shop, you can get them to actually mince you up some fillet steak.
You can,
right?
Yeah,
which is what I do.
Or you can just buy it. I mean, you can buy that in the supermarket as well.
I don't think you can buy fillet steak mince.
You can buy minced steak. You can.
Well, okay, you say so.
Yeah.
Anyway, what I saw is, so I like it. I like it, as you quite rightly say, in spaghetti bolognese. I like it with mashed potato.
Uh-huh.
I like it when it's combined with cottage pie.
Yes.
And all this kind of stuff, okay?
Lasagna.
Yeah. So my great mate, Richard Littlejohn, who has had a tremendously successful career,
yes.
part of it was being a newspaper reporter on a newspaper we both worked on when it went on strike.
Oh, yeah.
And I remember him writing years later, I've always been a man of principle and all this kind of stuff, which I accept he has. And he said he went on strike because the union was on strike, and conditions were terrible and all that. And he actually said, it went on for about like a month. He said it was troubled times. Me and the family, my wife and kids, ate a lot of mince.
Yeah.
And I thought to myself, that's a very good reason for going on strike.
Yeah. Exactly right.
Yeah.
One final thing about the culinary crimes, because you do eat a few curries, right?
Yes.
Most of the names for curries we have in this country are completely and utterly wrong.
Right.
For example, a pasanda just means I like.
I've never heard of pasanda.
Yeah, chicken pasanda. You see it in any Indian restaurant.
No, I've never seen it.
It's quite a mild one.
I've never seen it.
Balti. You've heard of a balti, right?
Well, a balti, I thought, was like... I confuse that with a bharji. Isn't a balti a bharji?
No, a balti is basically an Indian dish cooked in a wok. So it's all kind of cooked in one place, if you like.
Okay.
Very famous in Birmingham, of course. That's where they invented it.
Okay.
But in India, it just means a bucket.
A bucket, right?
So it's not actually a dish
no,
at
but that's an expression for the way it's cooked.
And chicken madras and chicken vindaloo, of course, invented here.
Really?
You go to India, you can't get that.
Can't get it.
No.
What about the one I like, which is
chicken biryani?
That's it.
Well, biryani is a northern Punjabi dish, so you can get that.
There you go.
That's genuine. Anyway, that's enough about food, isn't it? We've got to
talk
about.
It seems to me you could talk about food all blinking day.
I love talking about food.
And you have been talking about it for most of today.
I love talking about food. I think it's because I'm quite hungry, actually. Anyway, coming up next, we're going to talk about butterflies, which you can't eat. Well, I suppose you can if you're a bird. We're going to talk to Matt Shardlow from Bugs Life because they're all disappearing. This is Talk Radio.
Talk Radio. Digital the 21st century dream team of dialogue, debate and discourse. The two mics on Talk Radio. We'll get you talking.
This is Talk Radio. We are the two mics. Ask Porky coming up very, very shortly. We've got lots of great questions. So unless you've sent one in already, you're not going to get much chance of having it solved or read out. But if it's really good, you might just make it under the wire. You can tweet it at the two mics. Look for us on Facebook and post it there. Or just send it to at Mike Parry 8 or at IRMG. Now, we were talking earlier about butterflies because apparently a lot of butterflies have been disappearing over the course of the summer. Apart from red admirals, of course. We're now going to talk to a man who knows an awful lot about the hidden life of butterflies. Matt Shardlow is from Bugs Life. Matt, very good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon.
Thank you very
Matt.
much
Thanks
indeed
for joining us.
Is this sort of suggestion correct that butterflies are disappearing at a rate of knots?
It is. I mean, the thing about insect populations and butterflies and bees and other things is that they do fluctuate on a year-to-year basis.
Right.
So some years you have good years and bad years, and that's often due to weather. but they also have a long-term trend. And the long-term trend across most of our butterfly species is decline. About 70% of our butterfly species are in long-term decline, but this is a particularly awful year, and we have had a few bad years recently. So there's long-term trends and there's short-term patterns, and they have different causes.
Yeah, but what is the cause then, A, of the long-term trend at the moment, please, Matt, and particularly the acceleration in that trend this year?
So the two big things that we've got long-term concerns with butterflies, but also actually with bees and other things, are pesticides and climate change.
Right.
So pesticides, particularly the neonicotinoids, which are now very common in our countryside, is that the declines are matching the increase in use of neonicotinoids. And for bees, we know that the bees are getting hammered by the neonicotinoids.
Sorry, what are those, Matt? Can you just, in common terms, describe what that neonicotinoids are, please?
A neonicotinoid is a sort of pesticide that's one of the commonest insecticides that are used by farmers now.
Right.
They use them, they're coated on the seeds, they plant the seed in the ground, the plant then grows up, and then the plant has neonicotinoids in the flowers, in the pollen and in the nectar.
Right.
And also the neonicotinoids in the soil, the insecticides get into the hedgerows and into the hedgerow plants. So it means that all around the place you're getting this contaminated pollen and nectar that the bees and the butterflies are coming and feeding on, and that's poisoning them.
Do they die?
And that's one of the big concerns.
So a bee. I've got bees floating around in my roof garden, right? I've got
floating around.
Yeah. I've got a penthouse, and hopefully, I bought these plants at a garden centre, which my gardening lady puts into my roof garden. Will they be full of these poisons?
It depends. So sometimes when you buy pot plants, actually from shops, they will be pre-treated with these neonicotinoid insecticides. So sometimes you can buy plants for pollinators, and they already have the nicotinoids in them. Your bees in your garden will also be foraging around in the countryside and bringing back pollen as neonicotinoids in them, as will your butterflies. And it doesn't kill them directly. They're not strong enough to kill them directly. What it does is it reduces their ability to forage, to breed successfully. And so it's that long-term impact of these pesticides, reducing their fitness, basically, and stopping them breeding successfully.
But, I mean, sorry, I was going to ask, is it not the case, as in often in sort of the animal world, that these creatures can adapt to the introduction of something new? I mean, can they not somehow find a way of, do you know what I mean, sort of breeding even with this stuff coming towards them?
It's possible. So it's possible. I mean, in the short term, the last 10, 15 years, we're seeing declines in bees associated with neonicotinoids. The declines in butterflies also match that same pattern. And yes, maybe they will adapt to them in due course. Maybe they won't. We really don't know. It's very complex whether insects develop resistance or not to these sorts of chemicals. But it's not just pesticides. Climate change is also pushing around the distribution. So what we're seeing with a lot of insects is that they're not able to spread north because their habitats are being fragmented, but the southern margins are pushing north. So they're getting narrower in their distribution, and that's also causing declines.
Why doesn't
and then you also have the annual weather fluctuations, which probably are a big part of this year's number of issues.
Okay, why doesn't somebody in government ban these poisons if they're poisoning our butterflies and our bees? I mean, am I right in thinking that if we don't look after the bee population, the world could literally starve to death? Because if bees are not pollinating food, we won't have any food, will we?
Yeah, but about 1 in every 3 mouthfuls of food you eat is there because of bees and pollinators. So that's butterflies, that's moths, that's the wild solitary bees, and the bumblebees as well as the honeybee. 1 in 3 mouthfuls of food only there because you eat them. It's absolutely critical we stop the massive declines we're seeing in our pollinator populations. And yes, we believe that the neonicotinoid seed treatments should be banned entirely. A couple of years ago, the EU did take some action, and they did put in place a partial ban on flowering plants. But we're still having the issue that they're using these neonicotinoids on seeds of cereals like wheat. Yeah. And those seeds are then polluting the hedgerows, and the bees are still taking up neonicotinoids from the hedgerows. So we're not going to fix the bee population until we fix that neonicotinoid issue.
This is a disgrace.
Issue.
Well, I mean, it doesn't surprise me. I mean, I was reading a report from as long ago as a year ago, which said that something like 3/4 of the 59 butterfly species in the UK are declining so much so over the last 40 years that they will all disappear, basically.
Yeah, it's a disgrace, and we've really struggled to get the governments of any shape or colour over the last few years to take this seriously, despite the fact that MPs get more letters about bees than any other issue. This is something that the public are really concerned about, bees. Yeah. They know they're losing bees. They know they need bees. Why the politicians are not acting, I do not know. Even the EU tried to bring in some new tests so that when pesticide companies brought forward new pesticides, they had to make sure that they were safe for bumblebees and safe for the solitary bees, so safe for all the wild bees. Our government fought against this measure. I mean, it's totally inexplicable.
Is it expensive to do? Is that why they're not doing it, or are they in hock to the pesticide companies?
Well, there's certainly money to be made in selling these pesticides, and Syngenta, Bayer, no doubt they contribute to the British economy, but so do the bees. Our pollinators contribute £691 million to the British economy every year, and we should look after them more. To be fair to government, they have a pollinator strategy that's doing some good work, and this is about the Butterfly Conservation's big butterfly count, and their monitoring of the butterflies. It's really important that we don't just look at the butterflies, but we look at all of the pollinators. So we look at the wild bees, we look at the flies, and we look at the beetles. And thankfully, government has recently committed that they're going to fund 3 years of a new monitoring program so that we can start to understand that. What we don't want to do is get into a situation where it takes us 10 years to work out that 10 years ago we destroyed our population.
And Matt, what would the farmers say is the advantage to having these horrible pesticides sprayed all over their seeds and their crops?
Well, I mean, they will say that it helps the crops like oilseed rape and wheat to establish. There's also controversy around that. This was highlighted by the government chief scientist a couple of years ago. Yeah. And there's been a number of studies now showing that actually these seed treatments do not improve yield. Right. Last year, the UK government rebelled against the EU ban on neonicotinoids and allowed some of these pesticides to be put on some seeds. They let the farmers plant half a field with the neonicotinoids-treated seeds, half a field without. Yeah. And they found that by the time these plants were just poking up, they had 4 or 5 leaves. By the time those plants got that big, there was no difference. Yeah. So there was no difference in how well the plants grew, whether they were treated or not treated.
It's a scandal.
It's controversial, whichever way you look at it. I think neonicotinoids is a big scandal. The evidence that farmers are helped by neonicotinoids is really thin on the ground. In fact, in some cases, they may be poisoning the predatory beetles that are keeping down the slug population. And that might actually result in yield losses. There are some years...
It's a damn scandal.
Where the neonicotinoids cause more loss of crops than they actually save. And I think this whole pesticide regulation side of things is a big scandal. Back to the butterfly numbers, weather is also important. And this last winter was quite warm. Right. It wasn't a very cold winter. And you might think that might help the bugs. It doesn't always help the bugs. And the reason it doesn't help the bugs is because warm, wet winters are good for mould and fungus, and that can reduce the survival rate of our species that need to hibernate. So as the winters get warmer with climate change, we're going to see the species which require hibernation, like the bumblebees and the butterflies, finding it harder to survive in our climate.
Damn scandal.
Matt, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, Matt. Thank you very much indeed. You've opened my eyes.
Well, I mean, you're contributing to the death of these butterflies by buying these plants that have got the neonicotinoids.
I'll make sure in future that I don't buy any with the neonicotinoids.
Well, go down to your local garden centre and tell them that, demand to have plants which don't have the pesticides on them.
I'm going to.
And see if you can save a couple of butterflies.
Because remember, it's over for this season now. I'm already looking forward to next year's crop.
Are you?
Yeah.
Oh, great. And who's your gardening lady, by the way?
Well, she's my housekeeper.
Okay. Yeah. I wondered if you had 2 of them now.
No. She does all herself.
I mean, for something that's square, as the size of a sort of postage stamp, I'm surprised you need anybody.
She painted the fence last week.
You told me. Yeah.
Very good.
Marvellous. Wonderful. Right now, time for some news. Some proper news, I might, with Victoria Bourne.
Talk Radio.
Samsung has scrapped its flag
across the UK, online and on DAB.
The 2 mics on Talk Radio. We'll get you talking.
This is Talk Radio. We are the two mics. Coming up very, very shortly, we're going to be solving a few problems. Let me read you this, though, from, I think it was Caroline. My nan did mince with sweet corn and gravy back in the 70s.
Yes.
It was lush.
Lovely, absolutely.
Do you remember that?
Yes, I do, yeah.
Excellent. Now, this is the time of the week when we try and help people out with lots and lots of your free advice, which is extraordinary. It is
25 years after, and you have to make a provision for your life. So if I've said this before, at some stage in the future, everybody's going to have to sign a form saying when do they wish to shuttle off this mortal coil.
What, you mean they'll be able to choose?
Yeah, they're going to have to choose how long they want to live, because that's the only way you're going to be able to plan your life and live a respectable life without becoming a burden to society.
Yeah, very possibly so. Now, how about this one from Matthew? Now, this is current compared to the news stories that have been going around. What does Mike Parry think to a major UK retailer fining people who park in designated parent and child bays?
Well, I think it's an outrage, and I've seen the story today. One particular supermarket is saying, if people park there and they haven't got a child, we're going to fine them. Why? They're empty all the time. Those bays are empty all the time.
Well, maybe they're empty when you go there.
They're empty whenever I go there. And I tell you what, I go at all sorts of different times of the day or night. It's a damned outrage. Why on earth you should say, you've got to help the young mums out with their children? Yes, that I understand, but you don't help anybody out by keeping vacant bays where the people can't use. It's ludicrous.
OK, well, you're going to be facing fines if you park there again. Venero says this, Porky, why do planes and ships disappear in the Bermuda Triangle? Which hasn't happened for a while, but it's a bit of a difficult one to answer briefly. I
did a study on this many, many years ago. There is a magnetic pulse problem in that particular part of the world. And in fact, I did a great story there. One wasn't a great story, it was a tragic story about a ship that went down, it was a training ship, there were young people on it, and it just simply sank in the Bermuda Triangle. It was forced to the bottom of the ocean by the sudden swirl of a wind that got up to 75 miles an hour and caught the sails and tipped the ship forward. It happens in that part of the world because of shipping and anti-magnetic factors. There's no myth about it. It has happened. Now they found out what it is. The reason why there haven't been any for a number of years is because planes and ships stay clear of that part of the world.
OK, Steve says this. What currency should I change all my sterling into before it disappears completely?
Well, the strongest currency in the world always is the US dollar. But
it won't be after November, though, will it, if Trump gets in?
Well, I can't answer that question because I don't have a crystal ball. However, of course, there are other currencies in the world which have remained strong and steady for many, many decades, one of them being the Japanese yen. But actually...
Japanese yen's been down in the dumps for years, hasn't it?
Yeah, but it has been, but it's been consistently at a level...
Down in the dumps.
Yeah, exactly, that's what I mean. It doesn't really sink, doesn't really rise. All I can say to you is forget currencies if you really want to keep your money safe, your investment safe, and buy gold. Krugerrands.
OK. Rich says this on Facebook. Porky, is it OK to stab a friend in the back to gain a promotion at work?
Well, I've never done that, and I never would do that. Are
you sure?
Certain, absolutely certain. What I would say is that taking advantage of a colleague when he's not in a position to defend himself is a despicable thing to do, and something which I would rail against if I saw it happening to another colleague.
Right.
However, you can absolutely hold your head up high if you say, look, I went into the race to get to the top along with everybody else. I played it fair and straight. I worked harder. I tried better. I had more talent. If you get there, feel proud of yourself.
How about this one from Paul? Porky, why is it that Volvic mineral water, which has been filtered through volcanic rock for millions of years, has a best before date?
It has a best before date because once you put that fantastically unique product into a plastic bottle, you are germinating it from moment one. The worst thing you can do with water is put it into plastic bottles. You see it in the Mediterranean. You see plastic bottles stored outside shops in the baking sun. I wouldn't buy one and drink it for all the money in the world.
Really?
Once it's contaminated by a combination of plastic and fierce sunlight, that water's not worth drinking.
Here's a current one from Adrian. What should I do about my friend Scott Kemp, who, when I came into work this morning, was sat dressed as a clown?
Anybody who's dressing like a clown at the moment is either jumping on a bandwagon or has some psychological misfunction in their head or is simply a jerk. I would ignore that person.
OK, Kevin says this. Porky, my work's Christmas night out is on the 17th of December. How can I get out of it so I can come and see you both in Glasgow at the garage?
You just tell people you've got better things to do. Because most office parties end in disaster, particularly around Christmas, a week before Christmas. You'd be better off helping yourself out by not insulting your boss, falling out with your girlfriend, or punching your mate in the face by just saying, actually, I'm going elsewhere tonight, and we'll see you at the garage on the 17th in Glasgow.
Hurry says this. For a man with a heart condition who takes lots of tablets and is middle-aged, where do you get so much energy?
Well, it's not a question of that. It's a question of directing. It's a question of directing your energy into the things that matter in life. For instance, I don't direct my energy into louche, long afternoons like MG, drinking bottles of champagne.
Neither do I.
Climbing up all the stairs to get to the top of the Shard.
I don't climb up the stairs. I don't know where the stairs are.
Or things like that. You've got to remember, your mind needs a lot of energy. Your lungs need a lot of energy to make you breathe, and your digestive system needs a lot of energy. That's what I concentrate on.
Tim says this is an interesting one. Can spenders and savers stay married?
Well, it depends who's spending and saving, I suppose. I mean, the classic relationship in a duo type marriage or whatever is that the male member of the partnership will earn a lot of money and the female member will spend
traditionalist.
It. No, I'm not saying I support that. I'm saying that is a traditional view of the way things happen. Usually because the female member of the partnership is also looking after 2 or 3 children and therefore needs funds to make the household run properly. However, spenders and savers need to get together and work out exactly how much they want to put into the productive area of life. I'm all for spending, providing you've got it.
Now, here's one regarding Bobcat Bob. This comes from Two Mikes, unofficial. He says, hey, boy, what advice would you give to newcomer Bobcat Bob to help the Sea Swans on his EPL soccer coaching debut?
I would say, push the envelope!
How about this one? This is a bit more political. David says, what should Hillary have said in the last presidential debate?
Well, exactly what she did say. She tried to point out the failings that she sees in a man like Donald Trump, who some would like to be President of the United States of America. It's a really tawdry campaign now, throwing insults like that at each other, with Bill Clinton, my old friend, sitting in the audience and being actually personally insulted by Donald Trump. It's not good.
It's not, particularly as he is actually a former president and is still referred to as Mr. President. A serious one here from Willie. Porky, can you start a campaign to stop the Highways Agency from closing our motorways at night? It's stopping us truckers and slowing the economy.
Well, I have nothing but contempt for the Highways Agency. You know, they didn't exist 10 years ago or 15 years ago, and then what happened was Gordon Brown became Chancellor, and the word went out across all government departments and to all local authorities, hire as many people as you want. And to pay for them, just raise your local council tax and employ as many as you want, takes them off the dole queue, and it gives us a client state. And one of the agencies that was invented was the Highways Agency, and nobody to this day knows what on earth they do.
Yeah. Richard says this, what's the difference between a boat and a ship? Being as a naval man, you'll know all this, won't you?
Well, a ship has weapons on it and goes around blowing other things out of the water, and a boat is like the sort of thing you might see on the Serpentine in Hyde Park.
Well, like a rowing boat?
Yes.
Oh, OK. How about this from Pierre? Portmeister, the property guru. Do we spend more and buy a house that is already done up nicely, or do we buy cheap and do it up a bit ourselves?
I'd always buy a new build. Buying old property and doing it up is a real pain. And also, you will never, ever find out how much you've got to spend on a house when you want to buy an old one and do it up. Buy a new build. Yes, you do pay a premium for the fact that it's brand new, that the walls are sparklingly clean, that the boiler is the latest technology, that it's wired up for all your televisions and all that, but it is worth it at the end of the day. Don't buy old houses.
Izzy says this, Porky, a lot of your ex-colleagues appear to have bladderated themselves to death. Do you see yourself as the common denominator in their untimely demises, and how have you escaped the hack's lifestyle unscathed?
No, a lot of my colleagues that Mike and I have had, MG and I have had over the years, have died prematurely through excessive lifestyles. And we've been A, lucky, and B, actually quite moderate in the way we've approached life compared to some of the excesses we've seen during our career.
Indeed. Mark says this, my wife Sarah's met another bloke who's much older than me, but stinking rich. How do I get her back?
I don't think you've got much of a chance there. If you've not been paying attention to your marriage during all the years that you've had to make your wife feel good and wanted within that marriage, you've probably lost it. And quite frankly, if she's decided, the field is greener on the other side of the fence, I don't really blame her.
Johnny says this, just to be ironic, he says, what question would you hate to have to answer?
I'll answer anything about anything. It doesn't bother me at all. We are the great communicators, old MG and I, so please just ask away.
OK, and then finally, another one from Johnny. Would you rather be ugly and live forever or attractive and die in a year?
Well, I don't want to die in a year, and
you just have to stay ugly then.
I'll just have to stay ugly, but quite frankly, you get to a certain age, like I am now, And I don't care what people think I look like. I don't care about my facial visage. I don't care about anything because I just get on with life. And in fact, at the moment, I'm at a bit of a disadvantage because I've had a procedure on my nose, which makes me look a bit like Frankenstein.
It doesn't really. It's not actually as noticeable as you think it is. I mean, when it's like whenever you have a spot on your face, you always think it's worse looking than it actually really is.
And you don't care about it. But this morning, funny enough, as I was coming out the shower, I noticed like a wispy hair thing on the end of my nose, and it was the stitches coming out.
All right.
So I had to clear them.
It wasn't growing there?
No, it wasn't growing there. No, it was
That's
the stitches.
Good.
So it's getting better. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much indeed. That was the Ask Porky section for today. We'll have some more help for you next week, of course, at a slightly different time on a slightly different radio station. This is Talk Radio.
Across the UK, online and...
I did not say that.
The 21st Century Dream Team of dialogue, debate and discourse. The Two Mics on Talk Radio. We'll get you talking.
That boy needs therapy. Psychosomatic. That boy needs therapy. Psychosomatic. That boy.
This is Talk Radio. We are the Two Mics, and of course we are here all week. We're almost coming to the end. It's going to be Porky Vision tomorrow.
Actually, it's not all week, is it? We're not here Friday.
Well, it's not. We're not here Friday. But when we say all week, it's like Monday to Thursday. I mean, as you said yourself, did you not?
Yeah.
The week ends on Friday.
Indeed.
You told me only last week that you believe that Saturday is the beginning of a new week.
Yeah.
So therefore, actually, we are in your terms also almost here all week.
Yes, indeed, you're right.
It would have to be said.
Yeah. I tell you, I'm studying at home at the moment.
What are you studying?
A load of books about Egypt.
Really?
Yeah.
What, ancient Egypt?
Yeah. Well, no, modern Egypt.
Well, modern Egypt's worthy of study because modern Egypt is evolving even as we speak.
Why would anybody want to study modern Egypt
because
when you can study ancient Egypt?
Well, because Egypt is right in the centre of, what could be considered to be a very dangerous and volatile part of the world at the moment.
I was about to say to you, I'm becoming a bit of an Egyptologist.
Are you?
Egyptologists actually study Tutankhamun's
That's right. You want to be careful about that because you might fall victim to the curse.
No, I don't think so.
Well, do you not realise what the curse did?
Oh, that was just
all
coincidence.
The people, no, it's not. It wasn't coincidence.
All the people
that opened Tutankhamun's tomb died in, shall we say, unusual circumstances.
They died, like everybody on Earth dies.
No, they died in unusual circumstances.
You can put any coincidence to that. There's 3 books out at the moment. Egypt, People and the Gods. Egypt Mania, History of Fascination, Obsession and Fantasy, Writings from Ancient Egypt. These are all things I'm studying at the moment.
Oh, really? So you've got all the books, have you?
Yeah, I'm going to come up with a really sort of good, concrete sort of interpretation of what it was all about, okay?
Did you go to see Tutankhamun when it was on tour? Do you remember when it was on tour back in the I think it was in the 80s? They brought it to the British Museum.
Yeah, I was in America at the time.
Well, they brought it there as well, didn't they?
What?
I think they brought it there as well.
Probably.
It was a massive thing.
I was in Britain at the time.
I mean, some of the stuff was just incredible.
Yes, it was, I agree.
So what have you learned from your readings so far?
So far, I've learned that the Egyptians were fanatical about systems.
Really?
And everything being in the right... What's your problem?
So that's what you've gleaned, have you?
Yes.
Fanatical about systems.
About having everything in the right order.
Well, they like things to be put into pyramid shapes.
No, but I mean, that was a brilliant architectural feat, wasn't it, to have done it in those days when you didn't... I mean, how do you think...
Well, the Mayans did the same thing, of course, didn't they? The Mayans.
The Mayans. They were in South America.
In Mexico, yeah.
Yeah, okay. No, the point I'm making is that nobody knows how they built the pyramids because, I mean, without cranes and that sort of stuff, it's quite difficult.
Well, it's incredible that the stones are very big, aren't they?
Yeah, they are very big indeed, yeah.
Have you seen the pyramids in real life?
No, I haven't, no. I haven't been to
Egypt. You haven't been to Egypt?
No.
Don't you think you should go if you're going to be studying ancient Egypt?
I mean, it's a good point. It may well be that I will decide I have to take a visit there to the...
you can do a cruise down the Nile.
Cruise down the Nile. The Nile apparently is not that good looking at the moment, if you see what I mean.
What, you mean not very clean?
I think it's a bit polluted. Anyway, what can I tell you? Egyptians were persistent.
Persistent?
Yes, in their pursuit of popular culture.
Oh, yeah.
Okay?
Well, what was popular culture for the ancient Egyptians then?
Well, to get things in order, as I told you.
So, popular culture to get things in order?
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Okay.
They had...
I'm sure you studied this.
Hang on, excuse me. They demanded stability and order and the conservative attitudes of the bureaucratic elite, right? The bureaucratic elite.
So they didn't like the elite either?
No, they did. They did. Let me see. Hieroglyphic literacy amongst Egyptians.
Yeah.
10%.
What?
That's all it was.
What do you mean? Only 10% of them knew how to write?
No, only 10% could read the hieroglyphics.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
So who were they written for then?
Well, I think they were like a select band of academics, who kept secrets from the people.
I see.
See what I mean?
Yeah. So it was like a sort of a secret society almost.
A little bit, I think.
I don't think you know much about this.
No, I do. I'm going to be studying some texts in hieroglyphics as well.
Didn't they just discover Tutankhamun's mother's tomb?
No, we haven't found it yet.
I thought they'd found out that there was a passageway leading around the back of where his tomb was, and that was where they thought the mother was.
They thought they'd found a door, but they've broken that door down, and that's the trouble with the pyramids is you're not one door down, another one smashes you in the face, literally.
I suppose it's not easy.
And then you knock another one down, and so on and so on. Nobody realises how big the pyramids are. So to find one little room inside the pyramids where there could be thousands of rooms could be quite difficult.
Now, look at this.
Okay.
Deaths popularly attributed to Tutankhamun's curse, right?
Yes.
The tomb was opened on the 29th of November 1922. Right? Remember who did it? Lord Carnarvon. He was the financial backer of the excavation team.
I think there's a big TV series coming up on it very soon.
Is there?
That's part of my interest in it. That's when I got onto my book supplier and asked for books on Egypt.
All right. Your book supplier?
Yes.
And where's your book supplier?
Oh, it's people I deal with.
Is that right?
Yes.
Apparently, he was the financial backer of the excavation team, right? He was present at the opening of the tomb.
Yes.
He died on the 5th of April 1923 after a mosquito bite became infected.
Yeah.
Now, that's an unusual way to die.
It's not.
He died 4 months and 7 days after the opening of the tomb.
Yeah, but that happened a lot in those days, particularly in Egypt, because, the Middle East, at the best of times, is a difficult environment for Europeans, and particularly in those days when there weren't great antibiotic cures and all that kind of stuff, that wasn't unusual.
Now, it says here, rumours abounded, including that on the night that he died, Susie, his dog, same name as your dog,
that's right,
let out a howl, a horrific howl, and died herself.
Well, there's no evidence of that.
Yeah, but there's no evidence to say it didn't happen either.
Well, you see, this
deaths
is
of other
the problem.
members.
Myths grow up around myths, don't they?
Well, the deaths of other members of the excavation parties at Tutankhamun tomb helped the story as the curse grew stronger. Howard Carter's personal secretary, Richard Bethel, found dead in his bed in 1929. Bethel's father...
that was 1929.
Bethel's father
that
committed
7 years
suicide in
later.
suspicious circumstances in 1930, right? Sir Archibald Douglas Reed was a radiologist who x-rayed the body of Tutankhamun, died of a mystery illness in 1924.
Yeah.
Arthur Mace died mysteriously in 1928. I mean, this goes on and on and on.
Yeah, but I mean,
I don't think you want to get too close to this.
No. You've got to remember, the explanation is that these guys spent literally years in the Egyptian desert, in the most challenging conditions to European people.
Yeah.
And there weren't the sort of, you couldn't have the jabs. These days you go to some places in the world and you say you go and get your jabs. And there were no jabs in those days. So there was nothing to protect them against.
No, and actually...
And they could have brought a lot of these diseases back.
Yeah.
And they could have stayed, like a bug in their body for years and then killed them.
Well, one of the stories, actually, which does, for me, have a bit more resonance, right, is that the illnesses and the mystery illnesses that these guys may have died from could have been contracted from breathing in a fungus which was living on the walls of the inside of the tomb.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, I mean, that would explain a lot, wouldn't it?
Yeah, of course it would. And that's, that adds more succour to the story, which I've told you before, which you've dismissed, but is absolutely true.
What's that?
That Napoleon died from the wallpaper on the inside of his home.
No, I've never suggested it wasn't true.
It was the arsenic which was pulled out of the ground to use as paint.
It's just that it sounds ridiculous.
Yeah, it does. I suppose
when
it
you
does.
say somebody was killed by his wallpaper,
but no, you see,
it's actually a tabloidisation of it, isn't it?
Well, I suppose so, yeah.
He wasn't killed by his wallpaper. He was killed by arsenic poisoning.
That was on his wallpaper,
which happened to be on his wallpaper.
That's right. Yeah, but I mean, you're absolutely right. That is the logical explanation that these guys, mystery illnesses and all that, they could have had spores lodged in their lungs for years from, as you quite rightly say, the inside of a tomb that hadn't been opened for 2,000 years. And you can imagine some pretty horrific cultures developing, if you know what I mean, the culture of a drug. Of a germ developing over 2,000 years, and suddenly sunlight hits it, and bang, you're away.
Exactly right. And apparently, also there was a story, whether or not this was ever completely and utterly confirmed, was that the cobra was there when the tomb was open, and it ate Howard Carter's pet canary.
Hang on, a snake you're talking about?
Yes.
Was where?
When they opened the tomb, a cobra appeared out of it. and ate this canary.
No, that is
because the canary, of course, was there to make sure that the air quality was good enough to breathe in, right?
Yeah.
And apparently this was seen as proof of the curse, as the cobra is a symbol of the goddess Wadjet, who's the protector of the kings and queens of Egypt.
We're supposed to believe this cobra had kept itself alive for 2,000 years inside the.
It might have been in
a
sort of a little,
channel,
a little space in the bricks or something. I don't know.
Rubbish. That's utter nonsense.
I don't think you've been researching this enough.
Well, I've only just started, so I can't read 3 books in one night, can I?
That's true. Very true.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So can we expect more updates then on the ancient Egyptians?
Yes, indeed, you can. Yes.
Maybe we should do a quiz on them.
Well, I don't think we've reached that stage yet. I like to research my subject before we do quizzes. Okay.
All right. Fine.
If I need to research, mostly speaking, I know about things that I'm quizzed on from life experience. You know what I mean?
All right. Good. Yeah. Well, there's lots more to come the rest of the day here on Talk Radio. Of course, we'll be back tomorrow at around about 1 o'clock, I suppose.
Well, at 1 o'clock actually.
Well, just before it. In fact, to talk to Julie Hartley Brewer, and lots more coming up with Sam Delaney next.
Talk Radio.